had made her let her guard down enough, but she's not an easy person to deal with. I'm not free, huh? Really? Do you have something going on? Yes. Both my past self and my future self were thorough people, so in the 3 years of operating Channel Alert, I never revealed my face in public. But unlike before, when only Song Seong-hyuk and Jin Si-byuk knew, now many people know. Siwoo knows, Yoon Ji-ching knows, and even managers Kwon Hangil and Oh Seok-jin know. No matter how much I try to hide it, someday it might be revealed that Min Ki-won is a clerk. It wouldn't be a problem if it's exposed a little earlier. I run a YouTube channel. At those words, Ji-yu looked terrified, like a victim in a horror movie facing a serial killer. You should absolutely never say that in front of my father. Chapter 104. I don't want to. Just as family traditions are passed down, a family's music is also inherited like genes. In free-spirited households, vibrant and lively music flourishes. In homes with clear discipline, restrained and refined music colors the musical genes across generations. Yet sometimes, an individual's overwhelming talent wells up on its own, disregarding even their environment. Korea's greatest violinist, often compared to Paganini as a violinist who made a deal with the devil, Yoon Guancheol, the father of Yoon Ji-yu and Yoon Ji-chang, was a prime example. Guancheol's parents accumulated wealth through business and poured everything they had into their only son. Though born into an ordinary family, by the time Guancheol turned 5, his parents were featured prominently as Small Business Owners of the Year and were invited to meet the president. By the time he was old enough for kindergarten, his family had become a distinguished household. Though not yet comparable to major corporations, Guancheol's father was a respected businessman, someone people would recognize when told, "My father does this." "Mom, I want to try playing the violin." As Guancheol could tell from his parents' brightened faces that their family circumstances had improved, he received the instrument he had only dreamed of. The beginning was truly modest, but Guancheol was a child who could express exactly what he heard. Even without sheet music, he knew how to express the sounds he heard by manipulating the violin. He has perfect pitch. He doesn't seem particularly talented at playing yet, but that's something that can be resolved with effort. Would you consider enrolling him in our kindergarten? Recognized by the principal as having special ears, Guancheol was thrown into the wilderness of a kindergarten that nurtured musical prodigies. They say he can't even read sheet music. Why is he even here? The first society Guancheol learned in kindergarten was crueler and more frightening than he had imagined. Even 6-year-old children compared their status by evaluating what their parents did and how impressive they were. It was even worse with music. The gifted children were nothing but unrestrained geniuses immersed in their own worlds. Especially in Guancheol's generation, classical music was a culture permitted only to children from wealthy families, so the territorial behavior was unimaginably severe. I don't want to hear it. Can't you practice at home? My ears hurt. Merciless evaluations and comments about children with less skill than themselves. Though these were intuitive and innocent words from children, those small remarks ignited a fire in Guancheol's heart. He resolved never to be at the bottom. He had to sit at the top, looking down on others from the highest position. Wanting to stand at the pinnacle of the small society that was kindergarten, Guancheol began to make painstaking efforts. When other children were asleep, he would get up and play the violin. Guancheol, practice is good, but you need enough sleep too. You won't grow tall otherwise. His parents gently advised their son, who was devoted to practice without sleeping, but Guancheol, born with the genes of an emperor, did not stop. You always said, parents, that those who work hard are rewarded. That dawn, Guancheol demonstrated chilling skills that made one wonder if it was really a child's performance. In the living room, bluish with the approaching dawn, it was the moment when the future of the boy named Yoon Guancheol was determined. I want to become the most famous violinist in the world. The boy's climb, which began in a small society, bore fruit with perfect success, and Guancheol fell in love with his accompanist, whom he met at a solo concert. It was a happy newlywed life. He believed only his wife could accompany him, and indeed, there was no accompanist who could satisfy him other than his wife. When is Mom coming? Dad, I'm hungry. Wyatt would have been happy if only his wife had stayed by his side. Dad, Jai-chang doesn't want to practice. I don't want to play the piano. Wyatt would have been happy. It would have been happy. It would have been Yoon Jae-yu. Why can't you do better than that? Yoon Jae-chang, sit up straight right now. Get your act together, Yoon Sae-byok. Hey. No, it's not happy. It's absolutely not happy. With these children, he can never be happy. If you don't want to be called motherless children, you need to be more competent. If I die too, what will you do then? If there's no one left to take care of you, then how will you survive in this harsh world? What? Sae-byok, I'll provide adequate compensation for the adoption cancellation. But so suddenly, why? Isn't this what you wanted? You even wrote letters demanding I return your daughter whom I supposedly took by force. Have you changed your mind already? Guanqiao disguised it as concern, but it was closer to violence. He cancelled the adoption of his youngest who could never reach world-class status no matter how hard she tried. Yoon Jae-chang, get up. Throw it away right now. But this is my now. He beat his disobedient son like catching a rat to make him obey. Stop getting involved with people who have no talent. They're just trying to ride on your reputation. Dad, are you monitoring me? If you don't want to be held back later, behave properly. Every action from your school days will remain as a blemish on your future. He intimidated his daughter with threats to make her obey. Guanqiao's home education seemed to work. Sae-byok, who was finding her own way after being disowned. Jai-chang, who still slacked off but trembled and watched his step in front of his father. Jai-yu, who was becoming an excellent performer like her father, walking steadily on the laid-out red carpet. Guanqiao knew well that this fanatical behavior was not the love for his children that his wife would have wanted. But the twisted father, like a train with broken brakes on the wrong track, only knew how to move forward, not backward. Would Guanqiao not have known that what was loaded in the train's cargo was a bomb that would eventually explode? He knew. He was constantly grabbing and extinguishing the self-igniting fuse with his bare hands. Even as his hands blistered from burns filled with blisters dripping with blood. Knowing everything, he pushed forward believing this was the only right way. Thinking that as long as the bomb didn't explode before his death, it would be fine. Not for the sake of the family. Not for the sake of the children. Only for himself. Thank you for coming here in person. Ah, no, it's nothing. Even calling Min Ki-won to his home today was part of this. Thanks to your help, my daughter easily advanced to the finals from the preliminary round of the competition. I heard you accompanied her very well. Oh no, that was her sister Modest too. I hope you'll continue to get along well with our Jai-yu. Guanqiao was always watching over Yoon Jae-yu, because he wanted her to find a good accompanist and form a duet. The surveillance began to drive away fools who tried to use her fame without having any skill, but the problem was that Guanqiao's standards were too high. Throughout middle and high school, Jai-yu couldn't properly make friends. People who approached her first, attracted by her charm, would suddenly transfer schools or treat her like a stranger. Jai-yu knew it was all her father's doing, but she couldn't bring herself to rebel. She knew she existed as she was now because of him. And she was young. She didn't know better. She blindly believed that her father was simply driving away bad people for her. This often happens with children without economic power, especially in single-parent households. Children are dependent on their parents and easily infected by their parents' thoughts. It's a natural evolution to survive under the shadow of their parents. But such deception is bound to break someday. From the moment the child becomes an adult and realizes that parents aren't the whole world. The child begins to struggle desperately to distance themselves from the parent who brainwashed them and confined them to narrow thinking. Was Yoon Jae-yu any different? After entering the Korea National University of Arts, she constantly cycled through friends. All of them were performers who played instruments that could duet with her, like piano or cello. She was expressing through actions what she couldn't reveal to his face. Look, I'm Yoon Gwancheol's daughter. Aren't you proud of me doing exactly what I learned from Dad? Like mirror therapy, she hoped that seeing this reflection would make her father realize his mistakes and change his educational approach, but Jae-yu was terribly mistaken. She knew one thing but not the other. Her father, Yoon Gwancheol, was proud of his daughter. He believed that his efforts to keep useless men from clinging to his daughter had finally paid off. Jae-yu, who filtered out unqualified friends on her own without his interference, was the perfectly grown daughter of Yoon Gwancheol. And finally, Jae-yu had brought home a big fish, Min Ki-won, the daughter of world-renowned conductor Min Seok-hyun and pianist Margaret Hebler. Unable to forget her performance he had seen when she was young, Gwancheol had been anxiously waiting for this day, worried that his daughter might thoughtlessly reject Min Ki-won like other chaff. Min Ki-won was the precious friend and accompanist who would be responsible for Jae-yu's future in place of his disobedient son. The reason I called you is to ask a favor. A favor? Gwancheol began speaking with a composed expression. I heard you're not particularly busy with anything right now. I was hoping you would become Jae-yu's exclusive accompanist from now on. What do you think? It would certainly be a good experience for you too. Not attending university and staying at home, plus not having a personality that could refuse like the Daeson Jin Sae Byok. Gwancheol thought Min Ki-won would naturally accept this proposal. I don't want to though, she stuttered. Min Ki-won calmly refused without showing any emotion. Not stopping there, she added what she wanted to say. I'm busy running my new tube channel. In that moment, a girl flashed through Gwancheol's mind. His former adopted daughter who, like Min Ki-won, stuttered but couldn't hold back what she wanted to say, the one who wasted time that should have been devoted to music by learning useless things from Yoon Jae-chang. Chapter 105, There's No Such Rule When Mr. Yoon Gwancheol heard that I couldn't be his full-time accompanist because of my new tube activities. His expression instantly contorted. How many times in life does one get to confront an elder of the professor's age like this? Watching his wrinkled facial muscles twist makes even me tense. That comment, I don't think you should ever say that in front of my father before coming here. I had already finished talking with Yoon Ji-yu. Why not? While hesitating, Ji-yu carefully embraced me. Her trembling voice reached my ear. It's because of Sebyok. She fought terribly with Dad over that. After that, she got scolded more often and her piano playing gradually fell apart. Ugh. It was a complete disaster. And when I asked what the problem was, Ji stepped back abruptly, asking if I really didn't understand. She gripped my shoulders firmly and warned me. I told you before. I've grown fond of you because you remind me of Sebyok. Yes, but I'm not the only one who feels that way. My father feels it too. And what Ji said next matched exactly what I had been thinking. My father is a complete old-fashioned tyrant who hates when people spend time on anything non-classical. After Sebyok was caught editing videos, the computer in her room disappeared. So that's what happened. Tell me more. Dad has extremely high expectations of you because you're conductor Min Seok-hyun's daughter. He even secretly listened to your playing from outside my room. He probably thought Min Ki-won is the only one worthy of playing a duet with my daughter. Why me? Family, performance, intention, time. You have all 4 beats. 4 beats. Ji spread out 4 fingers, then folded them one by one as she explained. My father has done everything possible to find the right duet partner for me. In middle and high school, I couldn't even make friends freely. Anyone who tried to get close to me would run away saying sorry. The weight of Min Ki-won's name matched the reputation of being the daughter of world-renowned violinist Yoon Guanchul. Plus, he has to like your playing. I play the way my father taught me, in a way that pleases him, so I need someone who can support that playing well. And you're perfect. A performance that captivates people reminiscent of like mother, like daughter. It's not just about being charming. I perfectly support Jiu's violin as if I've been accompanying her all along. How could he not be impressed? I never dreamed that my experience of being manipulated into accompanying Jiu in the past would work in this way. And you have absolutely no intention of using me. No, that's not true. Stop lying. It's written all over your face. Jiu poked my forehead with her well-manicured fingernail. Honestly, my father's paranoia about people trying to use me is all in his head, but in your case, he saw none of that. You seemed so pure and innocent, you naive thing. Little did Ji know that this naive thing had been preparing for a long time to blindside her. Finally, time. You're unemployed right now. No, I'm not. I only know that because you told me today. Anyone would think you're just hanging around. How many people visit friends' homes on weekday mornings or afternoons? For these reasons, it seems I had unknowingly passed Mr. Yoon Guanchul's test completely. What should I do? I feel like I'm going to be disowned. How can you be disowned when you weren't adopted in the first place? So, an old-fashioned man who dislikes anything non-classical. Has he become so immersed in classical music that he's developed a narrow mindset that deems everything else worthless? I have no way of knowing since I've never spoken with him. Anyway, can't I just tell him I don't have time? That's what worries me. If you say you're too busy with YouTube, he would surely be reminded of his argument with Jin Si-byuk. Because I played the role of Hitori-chan, I might cause him unexpected headaches. He might lecture me, someone he barely knows, just as he did with his foster daughter, saying that instead of wasting time on such useless things, I should be playing more pieces and immersing myself in classical music. But I am someone who was intensely devoted to classical music, someone who lived beside the piano until near death. Although my time might be shorter compared to how long Mr. Yoon has played the violin, if we calculate the proportion of life dedicated, it might be comparable. The piano is a means of self-realization. It can be a life companion but cannot become one's entire life or identity. Music is everything in life. That's no longer human. It's just an automatic playing machine wearing a human mask. Who does that remind me of? Yes, I'm criticizing the pre-death Young Siwoo. The time Si-byuk spent on video editing was truly minimal. It took her only 2 or 3 hours to edit each early Acklert's video. She edited once a week, so it had virtually no impact on her regular piano practice. Yet Mr. Yoon considered even that a deviation, a bad behavior that destroyed her routine. That's how one becomes Young Siwoo. A train running aimlessly down the wrong track, not knowing if the tracks end or lead to a cliff. Becoming a pathetic adult. How nigh. Yes. How could you become such an accomplished performer under a father like that? That's why I find Yoon Ji remarkable. I don't know. As much as I hate to admit it, maybe it's because I'm terribly similar to my father. She should have broken or been damaged somewhere like Yoon Ji-chang or Jin Si-byuk under such unreasonable pressure. But she was too intact. Standing firm, she had somehow surpassed her father. I wondered what made her so resilient. Maybe it's because I thought I couldn't fall apart like my siblings until father realized his mistakes. At that point, I withdrew all my suspicions about Yoon Ji-woo. She was a woman playing the role of pure evil to make her father realize something. She knew her actions were wrong but continued only to fight her father. It was clear those actions would stop once the war with her father ended. If Mr. Yoon realized something and stopped pressuring his children, but she didn't change, then I could truly take revenge. Yes, I'm not giving up on revenge. I'm just postponing it until I can verify the facts. I'll help you. Help me with what? You don't mean? A surprised Jiu shook her head, saying it wasn't possible. Don't even think about it. Sibyok ended up like that because she tried to confront him properly too. But I'm not his foster daughter, right? That's true, but ugh. Pulling at her hair with both hands, Ji repeatedly banged her forehead on the ice cream shop table. After messing up her hair for a while, she suddenly got up and pinched my cheeks. Wow, my cheeks are like melted cheese, stretching so much. As an older sister, I don't want that kind of help, and there are things I want to resolve myself anyway. This isn't easy. As you said, your words might impact my father, but you could get hurt too. You need to know that. I gently held her hands and smiled softly. It's okay. And that's how we ended up in this situation. Because of NewTube, you're throwing away this opportunity? This is absurd. NewTube this, NewTube that. What kind of amazing channel are you running that makes you speak so confidently? I proudly displayed my subscriber count on my phone, a number worthy of confidence. Acklerts at Acklerts 1.51M subscribers 168 videos statistics joined 04.09.2020 251,194,222 views. Mr. Yoon adjusted his glasses and licked his lips as he saw the numbers. He clearly hadn't expected such a large channel. He must have thought it was just a children's plaything, but he got quite a shock. I glanced at Ji with a smile. Her father's reaction wasn't much different from hers when she first saw my channel size. Mr. Yoon cleared his throat several times, then finally managed to utter an awkward comment after seeing the thumbnail of the top video in the popular videos list. It was very fitting for a father who hated Ji Chang's fandom activities so much he resorted to violence. Sitting at a piano in such vulgar clothes, are you out of your mind, and what is this unintelligible piece? There's a limit to how much you can disgrace music. For reference, that video I filmed with Jin Sibyok has already surpassed 10 million views. It's one of the great products sustaining our channel. Before the real fight began, I loaded one tactless comment to break Mr. Yoon's mental fortitude. My past self also gave permission to deliver a proper blow to this man who dared insult our channel. But there's no law against sitting on a piano bench in a swimsuit. Mr. Yoon squinted and clutched his forehead. While I maintained a blank expression, inside I was laughing hysterically. Chapter 106, *kiss*******, but there's no law saying it's a crime to sit on a piano bench in a swimsuit. Mr. Yoon Guanqiao squints his eyes and pinches the bridge of his nose. I maintain a blank expression while inwardly laughing with delight. You say I disrespected the piano. How exactly? Music changes with the times. In ancient times, people beat stones and bones to make crude sounds to ward off fear. As time passed, they used leather drums and horn flutes to boost tribal courage. Finally, as humans developed proper speech and words carried intonation, music was born through repeated cadences. When the Common Era began and Christianity dominated the world, music became a means of praise, worship, and expressing the united faith of believers. On another front, secular music and songs flourished, led by troubadours. They sang about life. They sang healing songs to soothe tired bodies and minds. As humans gained leisure time, music began to transform into a more popular culture. Through the Renaissance and Baroque periods, harmonies and scales were established. Finally, what we now call proper classical music, sonatas and concertos, began to emerge. Following the musical father Bach and mother Handel who led this beginning, numerous classical pioneers appeared. It was during this period, from the mid-18th to early 19th century, that classical music developed as monophonic music centered in Vienna, Austria. But do we only call music from this period classical? No. These days, we lump together post-classical, romantic and anti-romantic music under the term classical as well. Only those who graduated from music schools or took music history courses make such detailed distinctions. To ordinary people, if it sounds classical, it's classical. Right now, we recognize and enjoy music created by pioneers from a century or two ago as the art of classical music. But what about a century or two from now? Will people then still listen to classical music? It's hard to say. Perhaps a fabricated art genre called millennium might emerge, encompassing all modern music. Or people might stop listening to classical music altogether. Perhaps film scores or game music performed by full orchestras might steal the name classical and be performed in most concert halls. Generations change, audiences change, and interests change, so this is natural in a way. Just look at how orchestral halls now perform game or anime music. It's a perfect example of how musicians are trying to blend with the current era. Of course, if someone performed naked every day, the exposure would overshadow the performance and some would frown, but what I did was just a one-time event. Regardless of the method, if it increases classical music fans, isn't that a good thing? How is this any different from a gamer with zero interest in classical music who, by chance, attends an orchestral performance of their favorite game music and then becomes interested in classical music? I'm just communicating with people who love piano. Everyone enjoys my performances. In the early days when subscriber growth was slow, I used to click on each profile out of curiosity about who was subscribing to my channel. Most had anime profile pictures, but occasionally classical music majors would pop up, and even people who ran classical channels themselves. Yes, someone who loves classical music might find inspiration from Eclairte's channel or learn ways to connect with people who aren't interested in classical music. This is absolutely not an exaggeration, as evidenced by a DM Eclairte received a few months ago. Sponsorship message. Largissimo. Hello, Eclairte. We are Largissimo, providing various content combining classical music and entertainment for the mobile generation. Our representative content includes talk shows with talented performers, live performances, hidden camera pranks with masters of the music world, and talent camps discovering and introducing young musicians who will carry the future of Korean classical music. The reason we're contacting you is that we would like to invite you to our channel to create a hidden camera content. The tentative content name is Pro vs. Amateur Blind Test. After inviting distinguished professors as judges, we'll have a pianist with competition-winning experience and you, Eclairte, alternately perform the same pieces to test whether they can distinguish between the two of you. One designated piece would be a classical piano solo, and the other would be one of the songs you've uploaded to your channel. I never responded to that offer in the past, but I couldn't help feeling pleased when I saw that DM. It was essentially recognizing Min Ki-won as a professional-level performer. Of course, why wouldn't they? Would the production team not realize that if the skill gap was too wide between a competition-winning pianist and me, the content wouldn't work? Unless it was spam or phishing, they were essentially respecting that while our genres and styles might differ, we were both top-tier in our respective fields. Now it's 1.5 million 2 years later. On the day she stops her activities, her subscribers will surpass 10 million. This might not seem that impressive, but limiting it to just piano performers, she was among the top 10. Although this was merely speculation since there was no place providing accurate statistics, as a fan, I could say with certainty. In the past, I was someone who showed people the charm of the piano. I never once disrespected it. I don't understand what's wrong with playing the piano because I love it. Hitori-chan, after pouring out her arguments, belatedly realizes she's been speaking thoughtlessly and tries to take back her words. Recalling Hitori-chan, I started pretending to be sorry and tried to smooth things over. Well, I mean it's not that you're bad or anything usually, this makes the other person back down out of guilt. But as expected of a final boss, Mr. Yoon Guanqiao absolutely refused to back down easily. I'm sorry for eavesdropping, but I heard you playing in harmony with Jiyu. It was excellent classical music. The man with furrowed brows continued word by word, as if taking heavy steps to suppress his anger. What makes me angry is that someone who can play such excellent classical music is wasting time on this. What an incredible man. He completely failed to understand what I was trying to say. There's no wall more impenetrable than this wall. Is he someone who can't be persuaded with words? At this rate, even if he saw Yoon Ji-woo imitating him, he'd feel no guilt and instead encourage her, saying, "Oh my daughter, well done, do more." Yoon Ji-woo believed she was fighting a war, but perhaps it wasn't a war at all, just her throwing eggs at a rock. If you prepared properly for competitions and took the stage, you could captivate the judges with your performance. Why play music that only pathetic people stuck in their rooms would listen to? That's what I'm saying. Don't you understand? Or are you pretending not to understand? Or maybe he just finds the conversation with me unpleasant. He just wants to say his piece. Is this what they call a collective monologue or something? Ki-won, you have great potential. You shouldn't be satisfied and settle for something this small. You need to see the bigger picture. See the forest, not the trees. Don't you agree? I stared intensely at Mr. Yoon Guancheol's forehead with a blank expression, then pathetic people. I began to show Hitori-chan's anger. Who are these pathetic people? Does that include your son too, Mr. Yoon Guancheol was struck speechless at the mention of Yoon Ji-chang. Watching this, Yoon Ji-woo was so nervous about the situation that she kept lifting and dropping her bottom on the sofa. They're not pathetic people. They're precious people. Would you call the people who pay money to hear your performances pathetic too? That's terrible as a performer. Terrible, terrible. But even as I seemed about to back down, I never did, stubbornly pushing forward, and she seemed to feel a strange delight in watching this. Her tightly clenched hands seemed to say, well done, our Ki-won. You're amazing. So, competitions are meaningless. Bedroom experts are better than renowned judges in the music world. Is that what you're saying? That's not what I meant. Don't insult my performance and fans. If you keep doing that, I'll also insult you and your fans as people with too much money who pay to listen to crappy performances. Crunch. I could hear Mr. Yoon Guancheol's molars grinding. He was finally beginning to waver. The initiative in this fierce battle was starting to shift to me. Riding this momentum, I drove in a powerful wedge to secure victory. If I receive an evaluation saying I'm equal to someone who's won a competition, then you have to acknowledge it and apologize. Apologize to all my subscribers too. Bow your head and apologize. Take the bait. Please take the bait. Take my bait. Fine. But how do you plan to be evaluated? You don't seem interested in entering competitions. I forcibly pulled down the corners of my mouth that were trying to rise. My lips trembled as the upward and downward forces collided. I have a way. I pulled up the DM list sent to a Eclairte on my phone. And among them, I showed Mr. Yoon Guancheol the content proposal from the Largissimo channel. What do you think? As I acted out Hitori-chan, who had suddenly become timid after saying everything she wanted to say, Mr. Yoon Guancheol snorted and replied, "Fine, let's do it." Chapter 107, A Very Small Min Ki-won. Mr. Yoon Guancheol was a meticulous man, claiming that verbal promises couldn't be trusted. He even went so far as to create a handwritten contract with me, someone more than 20 years his junior. Was he that afraid of losing to me? But this was exactly what I'd been hoping for. Honestly, I suspected that if we'd only made a verbal agreement, it would be Mr. Yoon Guancheol, not me, who would later change his words and try to wriggle out of it. Contract Min Ki-won will appear in the professional vs. amateur content prepared by Channel Largissimo, and based on the evaluation results, Min Ki-won and Yoon Guancheol will fulfill the following terms. In case of a tie or Min Ki-won's victory, Yoon Guancheol will create and upload an apology video to Channel Eclairte, apologizing to Min Ki-won and the channel's subscribers. In case of Min Ki-won's defeat, Min Ki-won will become Yoon Ji-woo's exclusive accompanist partner. The duet activities will continue until Yoon Ji-woo ends her career as a performer. I carefully folded the contract with its official seal and tucked it into my pocket, then walked triumphantly toward the entrance. Yoon Ji-woo hurriedly followed me and asked in a small voice, What are you trying to do? She should be happy that I'd become her exclusive accompanist. Why was she making such a sad face? Don't worry, I'm going to win. You don't know who you'll be up against. What if it's someone like Zhou Jinyul? Then I'll tie. Aren't you being too confident in the end? Yoon Ji-yu continued to follow me, dragging her slippers all the way from the house to the bus stop. Think about it again. You don't need to make such an unreasonable contract. No, of course, I'd be happy to have you by my side. Honestly, I did think of you as a substitute for Sebyuk. I wasn't keeping you around with entirely good intentions. To think the day would come when Yoon Ji-yu would speak so honestly. Even the heavens must be moved to tears. I barely suppressed a laugh as I took her hand. Actually, I don't mind losing. Don't tell me. The contract. I can just not keep it, right? Surprised by my lawless statement, Yoon Ji-yu's body tilted sideways. You even put your fingerprint on it. That makes it legally binding, you know? Then, I'll flee to Austria. Just try to find me. Surprisingly, I'm Austrian. I made a V sign with my fingers and gave her a grin. Finding it absurd, Yoon Ji-yu suddenly burst into laughter and crouched down on the ground. Broom. The bus I was supposed to take passed by the stop. You know my father is the type who would chase you all the way to Austria and show that contract to your parents, right? Since I was holding Yoon Ji-yu's hand, I had no choice but to crouch down with her. I gently stroked her head with my free hand. Then, I'll whine to my parents that I don't want to do it. They'll kick me out. I had said it without thinking, but that one sentence seemed to hit Yoon Ji-yu's heart quite hard. Right, that's what normal parents would do. Realizing belatedly that I had stepped on a landmine, I waved my hands frantically, not even thinking about putting on my Hitori-chan act. No, I mean, that's not what I meant. Yoon Ji-yu let out a bitter laugh and kept her gaze fixed on the ground for a long time. Drip. A drop of water fell, darkening the pavement. It was a tear containing her sincere feelings, an acknowledgement that her parents were different from others, and shed for her own pitiful situation. Honestly, even if you win this bet against my father, I'm not sure he'll change. I think so too. I thought you said you didn't mean it that way? My small revenge was met with a pinch to my cheek. Oh, though, that hurt still. Please. She released my cheek and stretched her hand behind my shoulder, pulling me into an embrace. I hope this makes him realize something. I hope you win. You, who resembles Sebyuk, I hope you can give my father a good lesson. For the first and last time, I apologized to my past self and hugged Yoon Ji back. Since it was Min Ki-won hugging her, not Young Siwoo, it wasn't exactly wrong, but something still felt off. I'll give him one. A strong one right to the solar plexus. That would kill a person. I didn't mean I'd actually hit him. I know. *****. Late June. The rainy season. The weather, which had been sweltering until yesterday, suddenly cooled down, and the rain pouring all day made me reluctant to go anywhere. I was supposed to go on a pension trip with Siwoo next week, but since meeting Yoon Ji-yu on Monday, the rain showed no signs of stopping. Fortunately, the cursed rain was only supposed to last until tomorrow, Saturday, but the weather this time of year was notoriously fickle. Still, I couldn't cancel the pension trip. Even if we couldn't play in the water, we'd still have a barbecue party and play piano duets. Why? Because Siwoo said he wanted to. And honestly, I wanted to as well. I had never experienced sitting on the same piano bench with someone I loved and playing a duet. Truthfully, I was looking forward to the duet more than any other activity that day. Hello. Wow, amazing. Are you really Anim? Hello. I'm Eclairt. It really is you. Look at your hands. They're exactly like in the videos. We're real fans. We watch all your videos. Thank you anyway. Today, ahead of the weekend, was the meeting day with the Largissimo editorial department. Since it had been quite a while since they made the offer, I was worried they might say, "Who are you?" if I said I wanted to do it now. Oh, Min Ki-won, you sinful woman. Even the Largissimo editorial staff were fans of Kiwon. It seems like everyone is just 1 degree of separation away from being an Eclair fan. Please come this way. What would you like to drink? Something warm? Or cold? I got a bit wet from the rain and the air conditioning is cold, so a warm cup of tea, please. Would you like a blanket? Since the entire building has a central air conditioning system, yes, please. Is green tea okay for your drink? Yes. For a while, I sat quietly wrapped in a blanket, like someone alone in a newly built apartment without infrastructure. As I waited quietly, I could hear the staff chatting outside. Feeling a certain rhythm, my fingers moved on their own. Dun, dararan. With the sense of this is how my past self might have arranged it, I tapped my fingers rapidly on the table. All I could hear was a hard sound, but in my head, a complete piece was being played. Not a bad melody. Suddenly, a certain song I had heard in the future came to mind, and my fingers began to play a song that would exist in the future of their own accord. It was similar to the phenomenon of singing a song I couldn't remember perfectly and naturally blending it with the next song. In other words, I was unconsciously copying in Young Siwoo's style. Wait a minute. A question suddenly poked its head out. The black tower I had haphazardly built up, or what I called the paint pot that had turned pitch black my performance self, had once experienced a complete destruction. Afterward, my performance was completely rewritten based on Kiwon. That's why the world of myself is gradually being dyed in a complete pink. My current performance isn't it extremely Young Siwoo-like? It's strange. I had completely destroyed the concept of Young Siwoo's performance, yet I could still perform like Young Siwoo. Is it because myself has mixed with my past self? That can't be. I had completely erased nearly 20 years of memories related to performance. I shouldn't be able to play. Yet I can still imitate Young Siwoo. I should only be able to imitate the performances he played for me, but all performance methods come to me naturally, as if I've always been doing them. I don't understand why. I destroyed the accumulated performance self, but the ability to copy remained. Is that why I can even copy my performance from my previous life? If Yoon Jicheng heard this story, he would probably say something like, the infinite cycle loop is completing, and the simulation algorithm might suddenly explode, or the world might get entangled, and causality and order might be shattered. Of course, that's the kind of thing only Yoon Jicheng would think. I was considering a different possibility. Namely, the possibility that Young Siwoo's performance self wasn't destroyed and still remained within me. Did I really destroy it? Maybe what I destroyed then was something else, and I'm just deluding myself. Even Professor Baek Jumyeon mentioned the term banghachak, which he used to use only in front of Siwoo, to me. If we examine it closely, it implied that my performance at that time wasn't completely different from Siwoo's, but rather originated from Siwoo's pitch-black performance. A sudden expectation rising to the surface of my mind. Hope for Siwoo's changing future excited me. If it wasn't completely destroyed but was a process of self-fusion and recreation, even a man obsessed with piano who can't let go of everything. Perhaps, soon, he might be able to cross the wall and move into a new realm. Just as Siwoo lives and breathes within me, a small Min Kiwon from our childhood lives and breathes within Siwoo. Wait a minute. Could it be is that why? Is that why Siwoo said his performance loses color when his heart feels ticklish? Perhaps it's because a tiny Min Kiwon is stirring in his heart due to our romance. Chapter 108. This is an invasion of privacy. Just a moment. Could it be was that the reason? When Siwoo said that Yeonju's color fades when his heart flutters. Perhaps, is it because a tiny Min Kiwon is stirring inside his heart because of our relationship? Anim? My journey toward the unknown was temporarily halted by the call of 2 Largissimo staff members. Ah, yes. I'm sorry. I was just thinking about something. You must have been lost in thought about your next content. Why yes, that's right. So, what's next? Can you give us a little hint? The era of singer-songwriter Night Walker's dominance was finally coming to an end in 4 weeks. That's when I'll be uploading the piano cover of Walking Through the Night, the song Yoon Ji-chang was so worried about. Of course, contrary to what that guy worried about, my past self was perfectly fine. I wasn't suffering from depression, I was just sad that there were no more Night Walker songs to obsess over. Can't you guess from what I've uploaded so far? I suppose so. Is it Walking Through the Night? That's correct. Wow. It's definitely the perfect song to make a statement. I'm so curious how it will turn out with A&M's arrangement. Despite my inner excitement, I outwardly showed a gentle smile to the 2 staff members. It means they should look forward to it. Whatever they expect, they'll see something even better. In fact, the quality of the songs my past self produced was so outstanding that Night Walker's official account came to leave comments. That was what catapulted Min Ki-won from 1.5 million to 3 million subscribers in one go. Well, let's end the small talk here. Shall we get down to business? Yes. First, who your opponent will be remains a secret until the day of recording. I see. Don't worry too much. This applies to your opponent as well. We've never directly asked the professor who always participates in our hidden camera pranks, but we've mentioned it in passing. The hidden camera pranks that Largissimo channel occasionally does. It started with blind tests where they brought in professional pianists pretending to be music students or applicants. The professor in charge of these hidden camera reactions, who is also friends with the Largissimo team, is Professor Jang Jin-si. He's the youngest professor in Seoul National University's piano department and simultaneously a wannabe for pianists with the most brilliant career. It's difficult to rank them, but if I had to compare him with Professor Baek-yeon, I'd say the scale wouldn't tip to either side. If Professor Baek-yeon leads wild creativity born from freedom, Professor Jang Jin-si leads refined creativity in a controlled and organized environment. Perhaps that's why this was an extremely tense moment for me. I had never had my skills evaluated by anyone other than Professor Baek-yeon. Above all, since this project involved a bet with Yoon Guan-cheol, Professor Jang Jin-si's opinion as the hidden camera evaluator was extremely important. As I waited for an answer, tapping my fingers do-do-do-do, the staff member chuckled and pointed at my fingers. Even the strict Professor Jang said, "This person is definitely a performer built on a classical foundation." That means he acknowledges you as a classical performer. Nice. I clenched my fist inwardly. If that's Professor Jang Jin-si's evaluation, it's practically half confirmed that I won't lose. Although the creator Eclert may have never presented classical performances to the public before. I remember clearly because I've been her devoted fan since she was 5 years old. Unlike what Yoon Guan-cheol dismissed as an amateur, Min Ki-won is a more classical performer than anyone. It will definitely be a fierce competition. If it were simply a classical music battle, I wouldn't be sure, but we'll be using songs arranged by A&M as part of the challenge. Next to the excited staff member, another staff member discreetly handed me 2 sheets of paper. One was a confidentiality agreement until the content release, and the other was a consent form for using my arranged sheet music in the content. What song would A&M like to submit as the challenge piece? I guess I need to prepare the sheet music for the battle song first. Whether it was a habit from my past self or not, I couldn't stand having arranged sheet music lying around. Even now, I remember it in my head, but I can't write it down if asked. I'd have to transcribe it directly from watching my uploaded videos. So regardless of which song it is, I need to create the sheet music. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a song I've uploaded in the past. Now that it's come to this, I think it wouldn't be bad to have a proper collaboration with Largissimo. It means the premiere of my new song will be on Largissimo rather than my new tube. Do you know this game by any chance? I showed the staff members Aesora Memories, a mobile game that had swept Japan and created a sensation in Korea with its deep and excellent story. I thought the women might not know it, but to my surprise, my younger brother loves this. He has several acrylic stands at home. What about you? I don't know much about it. But since I work with music content, I've heard some of the music. If you mention it, I might recognize it. One with a brother like Yoon Ji-ching and one who's heard the music. This makes my explanation much easier. Ah, this one. I've heard it. Is this the one? That piano playing boss or something? That's right. I think I've heard it too. My brother forced me to listen to it, saying it was classical. The boss of Aesora Memories PvE competitive content, Mystic Confrontation. The song played by the three-headed archangel while facing the protagonist's party, which also serves as the BGM, was the identity of the song to be uploaded to Aclert in 6 weeks. After the two had a brief conversation between themselves, they somehow started to worry about me. But with a song like this, it might be disadvantageous for an IM. Are you sure? Disadvantageous. The staff member with a brother like Yoon Ji-ching fidgeted with her hands, trying her best to be considerate while beating around the bush. Even if the song itself isn't classical, when arranged, it will definitely have a stronger classical feel compared to other songs. Wouldn't this be advantageous for the pianist competing with a IM? It's like deliberately walking into enemy territory in your field of expertise. In other words, she wanted to give me an advantage, but this situation might actually be a penalty for me. I was briefly concerned, but do I really need an advantage? No matter what classical piano piece my opponent chooses, I can perform it with my own color based on Jiang Siwoo's memories. Wasn't I the one who tried to play as many pieces as possible and memorize them all? Most pieces are in my mental database. If they suddenly bring out pre-difficulty reduction pieces by list, it might be a problem, but not to the point where I couldn't play them. On the other hand, the song I've proposed would be difficult for a professional pianist who focuses on classical music to have even heard once in their lifetime. Even if they had heard it, it would take at least 2 to 3 weeks to master it while practicing with the arranged sheet music. So do I need an advantage? Not at all. The professional pianist, who is a novice in this field, should receive it. The staff members nodded after hearing my explanation, agreeing that it made sense. Well, it's content meant to be fun. It doesn't really matter who wins. And there's another reason for doing this. It's because of Yoon Guanqiao. As the staff members said, isn't this a battle where I'm walking into away territory? Yoon Guanqiao, who was coughing blood when I sat at the piano in a swimsuit, would never think that I have an advantage by choosing a non-classical piece with a classical feel. It's a kind of formality to prevent Yoon Guanqiao from changing his words later. Since there wasn't much to decide, the meeting wrapped up quickly. I agreed to send the arranged sheet music, and the staff member would inform me of the song chosen by my opponent. Once the songs were decided, we set the video recording date for 3 weeks from that day. The judges would be the same as for the hidden camera, Professor Jang Jinsi and his colleague professors. Anim. Since you're here, as I was gathering my phone to leave, one of the staff members hesitantly pointed to one side. In the dimly lit office lounge, due to the rain, stood a large black object. It was a piano. Even though it was an upright, having a Steinstein product in the office meant they must really love pianos and classical music. Well, shall I play one piece before I go? That would be wonderful. We'll make sure to compensate you generously. I waved my hands, saying it was fine. As I followed the staff members toward the piano, my phone rang. Ah, just a moment, please. Since everything related to Yoon Ji-yu is a secret from Siwoo, I naturally didn't tell him where I was going today. Suspecting who it might be, I answered the phone, and Siwoo immediately asked, I came home, but where did you go? It's my fault for not telling him in advance, but this feeling of being monitored is no joke. Chapter 109. The answer was already out there. Since matters related to Yoon Ji-yu were secret to Siwoo, I naturally didn't tell him where I was going today. When my phone rang, I answered it, and Siwoo immediately asked, I came home, but where did you go? It's my fault for not telling him beforehand. This feeling of being monitored is seriously no joke. I've been lenient because it's Siwoo, but this is clearly an invasion of privacy. He may not be an adult yet, but young Siwoo is wrong for trying to keep a grown woman who's only half a year away from adulthood confined at home like a child. I don't want to worry him. But if I say guarantee my freedom, here his anxiety would only grow. Even though he pretends to be fine on the outside, the moment I disappear, he'll be consumed by anxiety and unable to function properly. Having experienced my past life, I know this all too well. Even in my previous life when we weren't dating or this close. After Min Ki-won returned to Austria, young Siwoo lost his concentration on everything. Now that he's reached the point where he can't live without me, what if Min Ki-won suddenly disappears? Even I, who has experienced the future, couldn't predict the aftermath. I just stepped out for a bit. I'll be back soon. For a bit? Where are you? Should I come pick you up? I said I'll be back soon. It's raining. Just stay there. Really? Okay. How long will it take? Since the distance between the Largissimo office and our home is quite far, if I play one piece and then leave, it would take about 45 minutes. I'll have to make up an excuse about traffic jams. But the location is the problem. When Siwoo asks why I came all the way here on this rainy day, if I give a vague answer, it will only increase his suspicion. He's already on edge whenever Yoon Jae-yu is mentioned. If he accidentally finds out, he'll definitely lecture me, saying, "Who am I to make a bet with Yoon Jae-yu's father?" The matters related to Yoon Jae-yu will end in a few weeks. I'm sorry to Siwoo, but until then, I'll have to get by with appropriate lies. About 45 minutes. 45 minutes, that's not just stepping out for a bit, is it? It's for new tube work. I had to go a bit far. Ah, for your channel. It's a lie, but a lie mixed with a bit of truth. This way, even Siwoo, who knows me well, would find it hard to detect the lie. Truly, this is a genius idea. I'll leave in 5 minutes. Just rest quietly. Okay, you'll take a taxi back, right? I guess so. Before you get in the car, send me the license plate number. I was about to say I'm not a child, but I held back again. If that's what he wants, I'll do it. At least until he shouts with joy on the world stage. I will. Hanging up now. After ending the call and putting my phone in my pocket, I noticed the two staff members looking at me with expectant expressions. What is it? As one of them patted the other's shoulder, the one receiving the shoulder massage scratched their cheek and asked, "Was that your boyfriend?" I briefly considered whether to answer yes. The gender ratio of my channel viewers is about 7:3. While I'm not particularly worried about viewership and revenue, I was concerned that revealing I'm in a relationship might cause fights among viewers. Just look at Yoon Jae Chang. Some people think of Eclairt as an idol. I predict that if the news spreads, comments like "I'm disappointed in Eclairt" will appear, followed by retorts like "Those otaku jerks are at it again." While it's true Jae Chang is overly invested, I know too well that he's not a bad person. Indeed, it seems best to quietly move past this. No, he's my older brother. Honestly, we share so much time together that it's believable he's my brother. So it's not entirely a lie. I see. You must be very close with your brother. More or less. More or less. That's not it. My younger brother and I fight whenever we're bored. Well, usually that's the case. The staff member shot me an envious look, asking how siblings could get along so well. Since I couldn't tell them it was possible because of me coming from the past, I had to give a vague answer. Well, maybe because we know each other too well. The staff member who asked the question sighed deeply at my response. I guess both you and your brother have good personalities, like how you seem to have a good character. Both my brother and I are so stubborn that neither of us will yield. We fight more because we know each other so well. Are we the strange ones? Well, isn't this a situation where a person who is most generous to themselves and a person who becomes angelic beyond selflessness, but only for his first love Min Ki-won, are dating? We might become a couple that never fights, beyond just getting along well. We might become one of those lovey-dovey couples featured on TV special programs who claim they've never fought even once until marriage. I've been thinking about what piece to play, and it seems like a piece featuring both a man and a woman might be good today. Then, I'll play Unrequited Love for you. Oh, Unrequited Love. Nishiju was an animation that depicted the daily lives of three ordinary high school girls, but its artwork and direction were anything but ordinary, surprising many fans at the time. The opening song Unrequited Love expresses the feelings between a man and woman who don't realize they like each other. Since the song itself portrays a situation where a man and woman have different thoughts in the same situation, the male and female vocals alternate rapidly, expressing their inner feelings in turns at a very fast tempo. I chose it because it features both a man and a woman, but there was one more purpose. I need to confirm. I wanted to properly check if Siwoo's playing, which I thought I had completely destroyed, still remained. From now on, I'll play the female vocal parts exactly as Ki-won played them, and the male vocal parts as much in young Siwoo's style as possible. If I confirm that both of them still exist in perfect form within me, the work of helping Siwoo find his color, which has seemed distant until now, will also gain momentum. I'm trying to differentiate the male parts more than in the uploaded version. Is that possible? It will be. Though it's my first time trying this. The staff members clapped happily. Amazing. You really are a genius. I told you so. A true genius. While the two stood beside me with clasped hands waiting for my performance, the past Min Ki-won, whom I thought had disappeared from my heart, announced her presence. My fingertips were trembling slightly. It was a bodily response completely different from when I usually play. So the stage fright hasn't disappeared. However, it felt completely different from before when I couldn't even start playing. But it's improved because of me. According to Ki-won's merged memories, the cause of the stage fright was a sudden change in self-identity. When #1 first appeared, #0 was in the middle of playing. As a result, she messed up her performance in front of guests and fled, making it difficult for her to play in front of many people afterward. But then, my consciousness appeared and somehow merged with Min Ki-won to complete the performance. Thanks to that, the stage fright that had persisted for over a decade seemed to have eased. This confirms it. My current playing wasn't born after destroying everything. It was built upon young Siwoo's 23 years and Min Ki-won's 19 years. The two towers were intertwined and submerged, making them seem blurry, but both of their performances were still intact and influencing me now. Wow, what's this? It feels different from the video. Yeah, it really is different. My thoughts became clearer as I heard the reactions of the staff members beside me. Doesn't the male part feel very rigid? I think it's expressing how someone gets stiff in front of the girl they like, unable to act naturally. Oh, now that you mention it, it really does seem that way. And conversely, the girl is showing her excitement on the outside. That's why it feels like she's trembling. Hope swells within me. History will change at the October Drama competition, and even at the Chopin competition 2 years from now. Siwoo won't taste defeat. He'll take a step forward as a great pianist and even avoid death. All the efforts to solve Yoon Jae-yu's problems and detach Baek Chung-ha won't be in vain. Oh, the female part's feeling has changed. The tension has decreased and it's filled with excitement. Oh wow. Listen carefully. The male part has changed too. It really has. This is the process of making up one's mind. Gasp. Is he about to confess? Hearing the staff members say they could sense color in the male part, which I had played as 100% young Siwoo and should have felt like pure black. I lifted my hands from the keys and turned to look at the two people as if entranced. Oh my. Why are you like that? Siwoo had said it. He felt like his color drained when his heart fluttered. As I had hypothesized, it was because a tiny part of Min Ki-won was responding. Do you feel color in the male part? Yes, I can feel it clearly. At first, it felt rigid as if tense, yet startled at times. And just now, it felt like someone resolving to confess. Just as I, who was once half and half but now perfectly merged, am gradually taking on the color of cherry blossoms thanks to Min Ki-won's elements. Though it's an extremely small part of Siwoo, nevertheless, Min Ki-won exists within Siwoo, and every time that Min Ki-won stirs with love, Siwoo will change. He will move forward. And finally, he will find his own color. Chapter 110. Because it's summer, the way back was happier than the moment I discovered Min Ki-won had secretly liked young Siwoo for 14 years. I was so happy that I completely forgot what Siwoo had asked me to do before he got in the taxi. In the midst of the pouring rain, I stood with my umbrella, facing off with Siwoo at the front door. I told you, send me the car's license plate number before taking a taxi. Siwoo was nagging, but I could only smile. How could I be annoyed at his nagging when Siwoo had found a definite answer to move forward into the future? Sorry, I forgot. Perhaps because of my smile, Siwoo didn't get too angry and just snorted as he stepped aside from the doorway. The maids who had been watching us rushed over to take my umbrella as soon as he moved out of the way. As we walked side by side down the bright corridor, he pursed his lips and casually asked. It seemed he didn't want to be upset after all. So, did you take care of everything well? Of course. Who do you think I am? Don't you trust me? I'm sure you handled it perfectly, but however, his eyes weren't warm as usual, they held a strange suspicion. I stopped in my tracks and looked up at Siwoo with a puzzled expression. What? What are you so suspicious about? You're diligently doing your work just like Min Ki-won would. So what? Swish, swish. Perhaps conscious of the maids wandering around, he bent down and whispered in my ear. It's just that I don't really feel the young Siwoo who used to be inside you lately. He's still very much alive in here. I just confirmed it properly today, you idiot. I tapped just below my collarbone and said, he's still in here, so focus on your exam. Well, I suppose I should. So, how much have you studied? I've memorized almost everything. Liar. If I tested you right now, could you get everything right? Test me. I'll get everything right and then some. Did he study hard alone in my room while I was gone? That can't be right. Siwoo is like a puppy with separation anxiety. His study efficiency plummets when I'm not around. Why are you looking at me like that? I really memorized everything. You know how good my memory is. But as if my concern was unnecessary, Siwoo folded his arms and snorted. Being good at memorizing and doing it efficiently are two different issues. Especially since our specialty is piano and music, it takes a long time to memorize history, even if it's related to music. It took my past self about 2 weeks to memorize the entire exam content. Since Siwoo only started seriously preparing for the written exam last week, it's hard to believe he's memorized everything already. Is he trying to use some trick? Anyway, he and I share almost the same consciousness. That means, from my perspective, it's possible to predict which parts of the book I might select for questions. But his provocation is too cheap. His deliberate provocation saying he could get everything right was clearly a ploy to make me, slightly annoyed, choose only the most difficult parts. The way to tease Siwoo is simple. Don't give him the hardest things to memorize, but rather the questions that seem easy to memorize but are easy to forget. Want to make a bet? Whether you get everything right or not. 10 questions. Okay. Let's do it. You've fallen right into my trap, young Siwoo. Don't complain later when you lose. So what are we betting? Though he asked me to let him set the pace, it seems he wanted a hug today. If I win, a 1-minute hug. You can just do that whenever you want. It's not like I've ever refused. so why make it a bet? Feeling playful, I pulled at the corners of my mouth and stated my demand. If I win, a 10-minute hug. Surprised, Siwoo asked, really? When I stared at him as if to say, why are you asking? Siwoo, who had been trying to back out, suddenly started running toward my bedroom. Realizing what he was up to, I began sprinting down the carpeted corridor to catch him. Hey, Kay. No looking at books now. As expected. Young Siwoo's provocation was nothing but bluff. Damn it. I know young Siwoo too well for my own good. Still, I didn't think I could make him get all 10 questions wrong. Do you admit complete defeat? I admit it was obvious you were trying to cheat, Siwoo. How did you know? I told you. How could I not know what you're thinking? 3 years is too soon. Maybe if you spend 3 years somewhere else, you might be able to win. Huh. I really thought you'd only ask difficult questions. Just to be sure, I asked the most challenging question, and the answer came out in less than a second. Perfect memorization. He had memorized the textbook without missing a single letter. Go ahead, do whatever you want. Siwoo stood awkwardly with his arms spread wide. It meant he was accepting the promised 10-minute hug as the price of losing the bet. The price of cheating is bitter. Try to endure the long 10 minutes with me in your arms, unable to do anything about it. I rushed into Siwoo's embrace and interlocked my hands behind his back. It was a blockade strategy to prevent him from letting go and running away. Since Siwoo Jr.'s breakthrough was threatening, I kept my hips slightly back. However, I pressed my chest against his to make his mind hazy. Come on, Siwoo, feel the tickle in your heart. Feel it more intensely and extract more of that blackness. It might be painful now, but I hope you understand that everything I do is for your future. Young Siwoo, I need to make you a world competition winner, don't I? HMMPH Siwoo took a deep breath, as if trying to hold his breath. 10 seconds, 20 seconds passed. 1 minute passed. 2 minutes passed. Is this crazy guy planning to die by not breathing? Cup. I deliberately stood on my tiptoes and bumped his chin with my head. Siwoo then gasped loudly, his chest heaving up and down. The more it moved, the more my chest rubbed against his. NNNGGGHH. Unable to hold his breath, he now began to groan through clenched teeth. They say breasts are the greatest enemy of timid men, but I didn't know they would be this effective. Look at that helpless expression. I didn't know I could make such a face. You're just dying of pleasure, aren't you? When I taunted him slightly, Siwoo somehow managed to retort even in his dazed state. Ah, yes, I'm just dying of pleasure. Oh, you still have composure? I tightened my arms around him as if to say try to endure this too. My chest pressed firmly against his, compressing his torso. Time out. Time out. What time out? Are you playing soccer by yourself? It's too much. Too much. I said I'd set the pace myself. This is punishment. It's punishment for acting all confident when you claimed you'd finished studying. But if I keep teasing him like this, Siwoo might turn into a beast again and throw me onto the bed. I must remember, young Siwoo is a man who has a record of throwing Beak Chinga onto a bed as a threat. 5 minutes left. If you say I won't use shortcuts when studying, I'll stop here. I won't use shortcuts when studying. There's not an ounce of sincerity in that. I won't use shortcuts when studying. Again. I won't use shortcuts when studying. I unclasped my hands and stepped back. Like a collapsing Jenga tower, Siwoo sat down on the floor and then lay flat on his back. Keep studying. I'm going to change my clothes. Okay, I quickly crossed the room toward the dressing room inside. Flinging both doors open, I entered, then slammed them shut. Leaning my back against the doors, I crouched down on the floor. When I placed my hand on my chest, I could feel my racing pulse transmitted right to my fingertips. That was close. When Siwoo was gasping for breath earlier, I truly thought my heart would burst. I nearly diagnosed myself with cardiac arrest and called an ambulance. Perhaps because it was summer and we were both wearing thin clothes, it felt almost like our bare skin was touching. In my eagerness to tease Siwoo, I failed to consider the variable of our clothing. Well, until now we've mostly kept to light skinship. Embraces that could be called hugs were truly rare. Was it all because it's summer? Young Siwoo, you calculating bastard, how far ahead did you plan? Rubbing my reddened fingertips, I took a deep breath. Direct body contact is dangerous for me too. I guess I'll have to make maximum use of my hands. I'll ignite the flames of love in your heart, young Siwoo. Love more. Love me like crazy. That's the only way to drive out all the blackness eating away at your heart. I'll do everything I can. It's practically our private valley anyway. What does it matter what grand event we hold? Ki-won? What's going on? I contacted Yoon Ji-yu, who had now become almost an ally. Then, speaking softly so Siwoo outside couldn't hear, I made a request. Anai, please go swimsuit shopping with me tomorrow. Chapter 111. Weathering with you. In my past life, I thought women's swimwear was actually closer to battle gear than anything else. Sure, they're called clothes for swimming. But except for professional swimmers, you could count on one hand the number of women who wore swimsuits truly focused on functionality. I'd only been to a water park once in my life, following Yoon Ji-yu, but that's when I realized it. Many women wear swimsuits to appeal to their charm, of course. Most people didn't have model figures, and even the skinniest people tended to show some belly fat. So most women's swimwear at water parks consisted of monokinas or rash guards that covered the abdomen. That's when I realized. That bastard Yoon Ji-chang learned about water parks from anime and had no idea what real water parks were like. But what about Yoon Ji-yu? As if to emphasize that she was the most beautiful person at the water park, she boldly emerged from the changing room in a bikini. When she stood next to me, I felt the piercing gazes of men, but at the time, I was only there for my promise with Ki-won, so I felt nothing. Honestly, I thought it was too much that even guys with girlfriends were staring. I secretly hoped they'd end up fighting with their girlfriends later, and a few hours later, there actually was a couple arguing, which was amusing. It has to be a bikini, but I'm not going to a water park, I'm going to play in a valley stream. Isn't a bikini too much for a valley? A valley? Then wear short denim shorts over the bikini. No, why does the conversation inevitably lead to bikinis? I just want to look good for Siwoo. Do I really have to wear a bikini? It's my usual Hitori-chan act, but today there's a lot of sincerity in it. Of course. Isn't this the first swimsuit I've ever worn in my life? Just imagine standing outdoors wearing only your underwear. How embarrassing would that be? You say swimsuits and underwear are different? But bikinis and underwear look almost identical. If you think of it as underwear, doesn't it become underwear? That's exactly why you should wear a bikini for Siwoo. And it would be weirder not to wear a bikini at a valley stream, trust me. Listen to me. Definitely short denim shorts with a white tee. And a bikini underneath. Okay? As if determined to convince me, Yoon Ji-yu showed me an example. The woman in the photo was dressed exactly as Ji-yu described, with her wet clothes revealing the black bikini top underneath. I could clearly see that a soaked thin white t-shirt was worse than wearing nothing at all. Wait a minute. This is Yoon Ji-yu. Flipping through a few more photos, I saw Yoon Ji-chang too. They always seemed like they couldn't wait to kill each other. But Jin Sae-byok. I see. Yoon Ji-yu in the photo must have been in high school. Well, that was before Mr. Yoon Guancheol went berserk, so I understand how they could go out together like this. What do you think? You definitely have to wear it, right? I'm not sure. Come on, Ki-won. Listen to your Anai. You won't regret it. Siwoo will be 100%, no, 200% satisfied, I'm telling you. I placed the image in my mind, erased Yoon Ji-yu, and put myself in her place. I may not be as well endowed as Yoon Jae-yu, who's at least an F cup, but I'm still proud of my chest size. Siwoo? He'd be thrilled. Not just 200% satisfaction, but easily 500%. But that would cause satisfaction overflow. As they say, too much of a good thing Siwoo might go berserk. I'm not ready for that yet. My heart screams uncontrollably whenever Siwoo touches me. Even though I want to get closer, want to give him my everything. Not yet. If I reach the finish line now, I'll never wash away the guilt of being an adult who seduced a child into doing something wrong. I think something more modest would be better. Yoon Jae-yu sighed, dropping her shoulders. You know what? Only people like you and me can wear things like this. Normal people can't even wear them. Ah, I know, but that's all I needed to hear. Let's go look at the modest ones. At least she didn't force me. Just earlier, she was only recommending it because Siwoo would like it. I'm not certain, but Yoon Jae-yu seems to have changed a bit after her confrontation with Mr. Yoon Gwancheol. Her eyes are still sharp enough to cut, but she seems to be trying to express gentleness with a softened expression. That change was so shocking that Yoon Jae-chang even asked me, "What did you do to her?" I'm putting my revenge on hold for now. I realized there's someone else who's truly evil. The expression on Yoon Jae-chang's face then was quite a sight. The guy who never seemed like he'd say anything serious in his life showed concern for the first time with a worried face. I understand how you feel after hearing the situation. But what if you get hurt too? Don't talk about your father like he's some murderer who betrayed human morality even if others don't see it that way. At least to Yoon Jae-yu and Yoon Jae-chang, Yoon Gwancheol appears to be that level of villain. She said this was inevitable because of their past history. I'll help with anything I can. So I told him that I don't need help right now, but I'll call if something comes up. In a way, I could be seen as having fueled a family fight by getting involved. Yoon Jae-yu also declared she would actively take my side when she signed the bet contract. But a rash guard for a valley stream still seems a bit off. This one looks nice. It's modest ink about it. Wouldn't it look awkward standing in a valley stream dressed like this? I think it would be fine. Yoon Jae-yu shook her head as if she couldn't overcome my stubbornness. I guess it's that iron will that makes you think about confronting my father. Choose from these. Yoon Jae-yu, who initially approached me thinking I'd be easy to manipulate, now sees me as a person of strong character. The thoughts crossing her mind are clearly visible in her expression. Does the top have to be long-sleeved? Rash guards are typically long-sleeved. Board shorts would be good for the bottom. It's the most common combination. B-board shorts. They're short swimwear meant for boarding. Like this. Ah, I've seen those before. This reminds me of Yoon Jae-chang's complaints about how this style became popular among women, almost eliminating swimsuit exposure at water parks. True. For pale-skinned people like you, rash guards are better for outdoor activities. Long sleeves also prevent sunburn, which is good. And they say the monsoon front is moving south, so the weather in the central region should be nice for a while. That's true, I said that while glancing slightly at Yoon Jae-yu. As if slightly offended, Yoon Jae-yu narrowed her eyes and pinched my cheek. What? Are you saying my skin is dark so it doesn't matter? Ah, no, that's not it. Even as she says this, Yoon Jae-yu is quite fair-skinned for a Korean. I'm just paler because I have mixed blood from my father, who has light skin even for a Korean, and my Austrian mother. Yoon Jae-yu, have fun, Yoon Jae-yu, you'll tell me how it went, right? Yoon Jae-yu, thinking face. Yoon Jae-yu, no response. Yoon Jae-yu, I'll trust that you will, me, yes. Despite my bold promise to share the details afterward. What should we do? Miss the monsoon season refused to let us enjoy our water play. It's raining even harder than yesterday. This is serious. The rain that started on the day I went to meet with the Largissimo team continued relentlessly. They said the monsoon front was moving south, but that only lasted 2 days. The valley water had risen so much that safety messages were sent to all residents in Seoul and Gyeonggi regions, warning them to stay away from water. The pension should be okay, right? The pension should be fine since it's far from the water. But you definitely won't be able to play in the water. The pension has an indoor pool, but it won't be as exciting as playing in the valley stream. There was so much I wanted to do. I wanted to float watermelons in the stream. I wanted to ride tubes on the fast-flowing water, play rock, paper, scissors, and dunk the loser in the water. Dunk the person who knocks over a stone tower. Dunk the loser of a snowball fight, and so on. I was quite excited about the idea of turning Siwoo into a water ghost. I'm more worried about Siwoo than myself. You don't know how much effort he put into this trip. Wanting to show his best side, he even practiced driving alone by renting cars a few times with his Strelka walking job money after getting his license. He was probably so excited about taking lots of water play photos that he must have cleared about half of his phone memory. Since we've changed plans to the indoor pool anyway, it's peak season now, so it's difficult to change our reservation right away. So with many activities now restricted, isn't it time for a decisive action to save the country? Kang HWI. Yes. I think we need to go with Plan B for the swimsuit. A bikini? I thought you weren't buying one. Before leaving the store after purchasing the rash guard, I decided after much deliberation to buy a bikini swimsuit as well. You think it might rain? The weather forecast said the monsoon front would be in the south by then. Yoon Jae-yu trusted the weather forecast, but I didn't. Thanks to coming from 3 years in the future, I recalled being caught off guard by the weather's whims around this time. The heavens were merciless in my past life. I trusted the forecast that said it would be clear, only to get caught in the rain for over 10 minutes on my way back from an exam, catching a cold. The rain that started then continued for over a week, not stopping even into early July. The cold didn't go away either, tormenting me. I've replaced the swimsuit in the suitcase. Kang HWI gave me a thumbs up and shouted fighting. It was time to surprise Siwoo, who must be disappointed by the fickle weather ruining our plans. Chapter 112. Far and treacherous from the dark, gloomy sky, thick streams of rain poured down endlessly like strands of noodles. Though Siwoo had reassured me everything would be fine when we departed, about halfway through our journey he finally let out a sigh at the rest stop. With my cup of perfectly chewy rest stop ramen half empty, I casually asked Siwoo, "Don't worry too much. Sometimes luck just isn't on our side." Siwoo's expression said it all. After acing his exam and making perfect plans for our trip, everything was ruined because the weather wouldn't cooperate. Besides, we can still swim in the pension's indoor pool. It's not the same as the valley though. What does it matter? The point is to enjoy swimming. I had foreseen this situation, so I was less shocked by it. I'm not sure how my composure appeared to Siwoo, but at least I succeeded in my goal of not making him more anxious by showing distress. And this will all become a memory to Tilda. We chose this pension because it had a piano and was hard to book, but we could still make reservations at another place now. And it doesn't have to be a pension, right? We could go to Busan or somewhere else. Hotels always have at least one room available, even during peak season. Siwoo's summer vacation had started last Saturday, and summer was long. I'd like to, but I have a competition coming up soon, so I need to prepare. Of course, with the dawning competition preliminaries approaching in September, summer vacation probably wouldn't feel like a vacation. I know that feeling well. While daily practice could be postponed a bit for dates, competitions are like a second entrance exam for pianists. Just as students who fail their college entrance exams might make poor choices, piano majors often face great disappointment when receiving their competition results. The experience of having all your hard work vanish in an instant because you slacked off in practice and made a mistake, it's truly difficult to describe unless you've experienced it firsthand. Well, even if we can't go on the pension trip, make me one promise. What kind? From now on, I won't watch your piano performances anymore. What? Why? I know all too well how much Siwoo cherishes our lesson time together. But what he needs now isn't private lessons with me. What's more precious to Siwoo is the other time we spend together. The memories we'll build going forward are more valuable. Since he's already spent more than enough time in front of the piano, we need to spend time together in other ways. Instead, I want to date during that time. Siwoo tried to say something, but I quietly placed my index finger on his lips. In the brief silence that followed, I carefully spoke while studying his expression. Trust me just this once. I think I understand a bit now why you said the color fades when you get all fidgety. As Siwoo made a face that seemed to say, you know something I don't. I held up a piece of pickled radish to his mouth and said, here. Eat this pickled radish and think about it. Siwoo gulped and opened his mouth, biting the pickled radish in one go. I wondered why he didn't eat it whole, but what he said while chewing was truly remarkable. You eat half. I see. I completely understood what he meant. He wants to share even a piece of pickled radish. If this counts as being fidgety, I'm more than happy to oblige. I put the remaining half of the pickled radish in my mouth and started chewing. Facing each other, we both crunched away, spreading the sweet juice in our mouths while trying not to laugh. Thinking back, it might have been because it was so ridiculous. PFF hee hee. YY ha ha hoo, you are kick. We giggled while our shoulders shook, completely oblivious to the sharp glances directed our way from around us. Before leaving the rest stop, we briefly stopped at a cafe, and while waiting for our coffee to be made, Siwoo quietly asked me. Outside the window, the rain was still steadily falling. I'm sorry for my poor driving. Are you nervous? Riding with a bad driver who jerks the steering wheel and alternates between stomping on the accelerator and brake pedals can really make your head spin. Siwoo was just a bit slower than others, but apart from speed, he was a perfect driver. With more experience, he would soon become the best driver. I didn't really notice. Honestly, you're better than those taxi drivers who drive recklessly. Sometimes I get carsick in taxis. That's true. Driving is about experience too. The more experience you gain, the better you'll get, right? Siwoo nodded in agreement. It was the moment when his expression, which had been gloomy from recalling all the events we had to cancel due to the rain, finally improved after about an hour on the road. It's all memories. I opened an umbrella to cover Siwoo, who was holding 2 cups of coffee. Due to our height difference, I had to raise my arm high. Because the umbrella was so high, the rain hit my face directly. Like someone who couldn't see ahead, I squinted my eyes and grabbed Siwoo's arm with one hand, starting to walk slowly. Beep beep. The doors of our rented car opened with the sound of the smart key. You get in first. Siwoo seemed to be guiding me to the passenger seat, not the driver's seat. Thank you. After handing him the umbrella, I got into the car with the coffee. Despite it being summer, the weather felt strangely chilly due to the continuous rain. I placed both coffees in the cup holders and was shaking the water droplets from my hair when I noticed Siwoo looking at me with expectant eyes. What? Why? Nothing. Just wondering if your head won't explode from shaking it like that. Am I a dog or something? No sooner had I finished speaking than Siwoo held out his palm in front of me. I reflexively placed my hand on it, then belatedly realized something and shouted. Hey! My flying fist was blocked by Siwoo's palm. Here, take this. Head shaking. Ah, ah. My hair flew from side to side, hitting Siwoo's face before coming back. The moisture from my hair was gone, but now Siwoo's face was wet. Giggling, I wiped the water droplets from his face with my palm, thoroughly cleaning his features. All right, let's go. We need to swim when we get there. It's just teasing to lower his expectations before showing a bigger reward, but I wonder if our slow-witted young Siwoo knows that. After staring at me intently for a while, Siwoo tidied my disheveled hair and asked, "Comb, didn't you bring one?" Come to think of it, I had left it in my suitcase and hadn't taken it out separately. I shook my head to indicate I didn't have one. Wait a moment. He tried hard to arrange my hair with his fingers, but perhaps because it was raining, it wouldn't settle properly. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he took something out of his pocket and tied my hair into a drooping ponytail, pulling it forward over my shoulder. Glancing down slightly, I saw a ribbon hair tie that reminded me of spring cherry blossoms. It was something I'd never seen before. What's this? Where did it come from? Siwoo just cleared his throat without answering, then started the engine and said, "I need to concentrate on driving until we arrive, so don't talk to me." "What are you saying?" "Let's go." Though he tried to be roundabout, I could tell from his reddening face. This hair tie was Siwoo's summer trip gift to me. He had prepared everything for our trip by himself, including this. Looking through the mirror behind the sun visor, I saw that the thick ribbon suited me perfectly. It was amazing how he had found such a perfect item without even going shopping together. He must have summoned an image of me in his mind and imagined trying various hair ties on me. It probably took quite some time. Instead of studying diligently as he should, he spent time choosing something like this. Really, if I hadn't given him those pinpoint lectures for Miha, Professor Baek Junjin and his wife are truly wonderful people. The two of them are like my actual parents, and I've received so much love from them in place of my parents who passed away early. It might seem selfish and greedy, but I've always wanted to meet someone who would look only at me and devote themselves to me. And I've lived thinking it would be even better if that person were Min Kiwon. There's a tiny Kiwon inside Siwoo too. This is also a gift from Kiwon. It's a gift she chose carefully with Siwoo at the store, thinking of me. I firmly grasped the hair tie with my slightly trembling hand and pressed it tightly, tilting my head. I felt it. A tingling sensation traveled through my fingertips. This was Siwoo's love. He had gone out of his way to find the best gift at a distant store despite having no time. Just as I wouldn't hesitate to do difficult things for him, he too had carved out precious time for me. Though I already knew this, realizing it again made my heart swell. The fire ignited in my heart continued to burn, making my chest even hotter. After the powder keg disappeared, I thought my heart wouldn't undergo any more changes. But I was wrong. A huge furnace had been built, starting to supply hot heat throughout my body. This furnace grew and expanded every time Siwoo did something strange. I swallowed hard while looking at the raindrops hitting the car window. Then I turned on my phone to check today's date, June 26th. About halfway through 2023. What should I do? Can I hold out until next year? Chapter 113. Bad memories. I realized my heart had evolved into a massive furnace. The heat spreading throughout my body felt stronger than before. Despite wearing nothing but a swimsuit, I was burning up. I was nervous. The thought of showing myself to Siwoo like this had me completely on edge. Calm down. Standing in front of the changing room mirror, I'd been trying to steady my breathing for several minutes now. Siwoo was waiting outside, but I couldn't bring myself to step out. I said, "Calm down. I'm just showing him." Right when I bought the swimsuit, I hadn't thought much of it. I never expected my heart would race like this over Siwoo's small, unexpected gift. I'm truly hopeless. No matter what grand plans I might have, I always crumble helplessly when I meet Siwoo. What an utterly hopeless woman I am. How many detours did my past self take when this woman was right in front of me? Instead of being manipulated by Yoon Ji for nearly half a year, if I had just met Kiwon directly and asked her to hang out, I wouldn't have needed to die and be reborn. Once again, I stared blankly into the mirror. The girl in the reflection stood there in a snow-white bikini, her face flushed. Her hands were neatly folded in front of her chest, having nowhere else to go, and her knees were almost touching, betraying her feelings. Yet contrary to her expression and behavior, she was so beautiful that she resembled an idol pretending to be a shy girl. I should go out. Time was ticking away. I couldn't keep Siwoo waiting forever. He had been looking forward to playing in the water with me since before the exams. I should live up to his expectations, especially after receiving his gift. Do I look more mature? With my hair tied the way Siwoo had done it earlier, letting it hang slightly loose, I did look somewhat more grown up. This way, I felt a little less guilty. I'm not sure. Why does being a minor make me worry so much? There are things you can only feel because it's slow. I'm an adult, and I know all too well what lies at the end of adult romance. That's why I have to hold back. Faster isn't always better. The moment I surrender to instinct, I'll clearly lose many memories that can only be experienced through innocent love. So, I must endure. And I should also soothe Siwoo to prevent him from going overboard. All right. Let's go. Here I come, young Siwoo. I'm coming out to share this sight, too beautiful to keep to myself, with you. Young Siwoo. Ben. I kicked open the changing room door with gusto. Then, with hands on my hips, I stood tall, ready to show myself to Siwoo. Look at this. But Siwoo, who should have been exclaiming in admiration, was nowhere to be seen. Where did he go? Hearing a groan from somewhere, I turned my head to see the wide-open door slowly closing. And behind it was Siwoo. His forehead was bright red. Hey, what happened to your forehead? Could you maybe open the door more gently next time? Only then did I realize that his forehead was in that state because I had flung the door open so vigorously. It was an attempt to ease my tension, but it had left Siwoo with a bump on his forehead. I approached him and rubbed his forehead with my hand. Are you okay? In a brief moment, Siwoo's gaze slid down toward my chest, then quickly darted to the side, staring at empty space. I'm fine. It's red though. It wasn't that hard. You're not a gorilla or something. Since the only person we describe as a gorilla is Baek Chunga, he was indirectly saying that the force of the door was weaker than hers. I chuckled and blew a soft hoo on his forehead. Does it hurt less now? Siwoo nodded silently. His gaze kept coming toward me and then moving away, like a magnet pulling him in before he forcibly tore himself away. Somehow, his body seemed to have retreated further back from his earlier position, but now wasn't the time to worry about that. Come on, get up. Let's play in the water. Siwoo took my hand and stood up, his gaze once again moving toward my face. And then away again. Was the impact too powerful after all? He can't even look at me properly, but this was the same Siwoo who had been visibly dejected when our outdoor water play plans fell through. Thanks to the swimsuit I was wearing, Siwoo now had a much happier expression compared to earlier. Though he was visibly tense, there was a complex emotion layered behind his happiness. How should he react? Why was his heart racing like this? Knowing yet having to pretend not to know. Needing to speak but having to choose his words carefully. That's why he was standing there, unable to say anything. His silence was substituting for words that couldn't express how beautiful I was. An ordinary woman might have pouted at this point. But I know Siwoo too well. I didn't confront him about why he wasn't complimenting me, why he wasn't telling me I was pretty. I didn't act spoiled. I didn't look at him demandingly. I just waited until he was mentally prepared and could express himself purely. Come here. We need to wet ourselves first. Otherwise, we'll get cramps. I grabbed Siwoo's wrist and led him to the pool. I pulled him very gently to prevent slipping on the wet floor. Squatting at the edge of the pool, I splashed water on my feet. The water's lukewarm, which is perfect. It would have been too cold if it was colder. Why yeah. Then I dipped my feet in. Splash, splash. The water I kicked up sprinkled on our faces and bodies. Siwoo had quietly sat down beside me and started splashing water on himself. His gaze still alternated between me and distant points. I waited. I waited for him to calm down. And then I jumped into the water first. I need to help him relax. He wouldn't want to make mistakes. He'd want to create only good memories. After all, this was his first pension trip with me, whom he loves. Though he said he would take the lead, I'm 3 years older, so I should create an appropriate atmosphere for him to lead here. So take this. A splash of water. Ah. With a grin on my face, I scooped up water with both hands and splashed it on Siwoo, who was sitting at the edge of the pool. Siwoo's slightly curly hair, which usually looked puffy, flattened as it got wet. Looking a bit annoyed, Siwoo bit his lip and pushed his hair back completely. His face, which had looked somewhat dorky because of his hair, was now fully visible. Yes, this is young Siwoo. When he washes up and pushes his forehead like this, there's a handsome man in the mirror, I tell you. Song Seon-hyuk isn't the only one who becomes handsome when his bangs are pushed back. Siwoo is handsome too, without his dark circles. I, who was once young Siwoo, can attest to this. So that's how you want to play? Siwoo grinned and jumped into the water. Splash! A big wave of water covered me. I shook my head to fix my hair, and suddenly Siwoo was right in front of me. Ah! Before I could react, a splash of water came flying. Water from both sides rushed into my nose. Phew-heck! I floundered and fell back on my bottom. The pool was shallow, so I could get up immediately, but more water entered my nose in the meantime. Eek! As I made a strange sound and covered my face, Siwoo approached me, concerned. Hey, are you okay? Did I splash too much? How innocent you are, young Siwoo. I paid him back exactly as I had received. The splash of water hit Siwoo's face cleanly as it flew past. It made such a loud sound that someone might have thought he'd been slapped. Blub blub. This time, Siwoo stumbled backward and fell on his bottom. Being tall, his head didn't go underwater. Well, let me help with that. I used all my strength to scoop up water with both hands. Siwoo was trying to get up, using both hands to push off the bottom, leaving his face defenseless. Splash, splash. After receiving a refreshing shower of water, Siwoo shouted loudly. Wait, what? I stopped with a smirk. Is he going to surrender? Phew. Siwoo slowly got up and wiped the water from his face with his hand. Then, staring at me, he said, I didn't say it earlier, but your swimsuit looks pretty. The massive furnace in my heart erupted. With the heat spreading throughout my body, I stood there motionless for a moment. Really? I had repeatedly thought to myself, you look really pretty today, while looking in the mirror. It was a preemptive mental victory in case Siwoo didn't compliment my swimsuit. But hearing it now felt completely different. What? I would have been fine without hearing it. The furnace output had already exceeded its rated capacity, so that's a lie. You're so pretty. So splash. A wave of water created by Siwoo's large hand covered me. I want to tease you. Ah. Splash, 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 splash. The relentless Siwoo pump shoved water into my nose like crazy. Tech. Stop, stop. You say that, but you're going to splash me again, aren't you? I'm not falling for it. For a moment, I had difficulty breathing, and a bad memory flashed through my mind. The falling bus. The cold Han River water rushing in. My dying body. Ah. Overcome with fear, I screamed and rushed forward. Soon, Siwoo and I became entangled. Splash! We both fell into the water at the same time, but in a strange posture, as if giving a piggyback ride to a full-grown adult. Siwoo was submerged in the water. With his eyes wide open underwater, he was holding my waist to keep me from sinking. The bad memory sliced through the nape of my neck like a well-sharpened knife. Unable to bear the eerie feeling, I struggled to pull Siwoo out of the water. Hey, Come out. Come out. Young Siwoo. Chapter 114. There's still something important left, you know. He was holding my waist underwater, eyes wide open with a blue tinge, keeping me from sinking. A bad memory sliced across the nape of my neck like a well-honed knife. Unable to bear the eerie feeling, I struggled to pull Siwoo out of the water. Hey, hey, come out. Come out. Young Siwoo. Turning my body sideways to stand firmly on the pool floor, Siwoo finally emerged from the water and took a deep breath. Were you trying to suffocate yourself? Why didn't you come up? If I hadn't done that, you would have swallowed water. Well, that's true. But what about you? Why were you so startled? Do you have some bad memories with water? Since I couldn't tell him that I had drowned to death in my previous life, I looked straight at Siwoo while touching the nape of my neck. Ah yes. I'm a bit afraid of deep water. You should have said so earlier. Is shallow water okay? Yeah, it's fine. But you just screamed. That's because too much water went up my nose. Siwoo sighed and stroked my head. You should tell me these things in advance. Even if you and I are the same, we're not exactly the same in everything. I can vaguely understand that much. He was genuinely worried about me. He knew that my fear of water wasn't fake. Water activities. Did you actually not want to come but forced yourself to follow me? Oh no. This isn't good. Siwoo's happy memories will be tainted black. I shook my head vigorously and raised my voice. No, absolutely not. I really wanted to come. Truly. He pushed me away from his embrace and looked into my eyes. After a moment of searching for sincerity in my gaze, Siwoo dropped his shoulders and let out a big sigh. I'm sorry. I won't play that kind of prank again. Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry. I should have told you beforehand. Don't apologize. With serious eyes, Siwoo gripped my shoulders firmly. Though he applied considerable force, it didn't hurt at all. It's my fault for not noticing. You did nothing wrong. That's what boyfriends are supposed to do. What are you saying, you fool? If I hadn't told you, would you have known my true identity? Would you have known that I came all this way because you died 3 years later? No. The young Siwoo from 3 years ago could never know what would happen 3 years later. Even though the current me can understand, it's impossible for him to figure that out. I should have noticed when you were taking so long in the changing room. It was a completely different approach and an entirely wrong interpretation. Nevertheless, he was trying to find the right answer in my actions. He was trying to read my true feelings in every little action that he could have missed. It's not surveillance. He's just looking out for me. He's just watching to do anything for me. I shouldn't find it annoying or bothersome. Because that's how young Siwoo loves. Even though I've always been the same way with Siwoo, I'm clearly an idiot, pretending not to know when I actually do. If I'm dating young Siwoo, being obsessed over is only natural. You know, I can do anything for you. So tell me anything. If there's something I can do, I'll do it somehow. Drip, drip. Water droplets fell from our hair into the pool. Watching the small ripples spread, I was looking at Siwoo. Time flowed slowly. I want you to rely on me because I'm your boyfriend. Staring blankly at Siwoo, I cursed inwardly. Damn. That's so cool. This was a side that the past me could never have shown to Kiwon, a side that only Siwoo, whom I had taught and reformed, could display. Yes, this was similar to the envy I felt toward Song Seong-hyuk. The difference, however, was that Song Seong-hyuk was a shining rival who sparked my fighting spirit, while young Siwoo was my pathetic past self who evoked my sympathy. The Siwoo I raised is now threatening me. I admire and love him. This can't be stopped. I'm just being pulled along by where my heart leads. My hair tie had come undone and was now floating on the water's surface. Arg! Feeling annoyed for no reason, I scooped up water with all my might, but Siwoo just stood there taking it. If you don't dodge, I'll keep splashing you. Not content with just getting splashed, he spread his arms wide. If it makes you happy, go ahead. I fell for his provocation. So I charged at him. Instead of water, I threw my body. This isn't what I meant when I opened my arms. At Siwoo's perplexed words, I snapped back. Shut up. Asterisk 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 only when it was time to grill meat after our refreshing water play did Siwoo candidly share the thoughts he had during our swim. Hey, just in case, I'm telling you this. Even if we go to the beach together next time, never wear that swimsuit. I know exactly what he means. He wants to be the only one to see it, so don't even think about showing it to others. I wasn't planning to anyway. There's no way I'd show that much skin to other people. Min Kiwon's body is like Austria's national treasure, and Young Siwoo is its custodian. I only showed you because it's you. I know, but just in case. Just in case. I moved closer to Siwoo as he grilled the meat and raised my eyebrows. Why? Afraid of getting jealous. It's not jealousy. I just don't want other men to see you. Come on. What's wrong with them looking? They'll all think, did this bastard save a country in his past life? Though he grumbled, Siwoo's face was honest. He probably just thought to himself, that might actually be fun anyway. Since Siwoo says not to wear it, I'll just wear a rash guard when we go out together. Wow, where can you find a girlfriend like me? I'm so obedient, right? Yes, you're so great. Great. Can't you compliment me with prettier words? You're great. Beautiful Min Kiwon. Considering Siwoo's usual vocabulary, this expression was truly poor. It seems that swimsuit-glad Kiwon had quite an impact on him. Or maybe it was because of what happened earlier. I felt guilty for possibly ruining the mood because of me. Wow, but the meat smells really good. Where did you get it? I went shopping with Ganghui. No wonder he's been busy going out lately. It was all to help Siwoo. It's definitely hitting my taste buds, but isn't this cheating? Honestly, you would have said it was delicious no matter what meat I bought. Saying I'd call anything delicious. Who does he think I am? Someone who can't speak her mind in front of young Siwoo? And no, I wouldn't. When I glared at him with fierce eyes, Siwoo gave me a subtle look and smiled. You say no, but I hit the nail on the head, didn't I? It was frustrating to have my true feelings exposed, but I appreciated his thoughtfulness. I soon removed the intensity from my eyes and rested my cheek on Siwoo's left shoulder. I just wanted to feed you what you like best. Pitter-patter. Even though it was night, the rain continued to fall without pause. The sound of the swollen stream was quite threatening despite the distance. Hey, have you ever been swept away by rapids before? Siwoo still seemed concerned about what happened earlier. I shook my head. No, but I almost died drowning in a river. Actually, I did die. Really? When? It wasn't that long ago, quite recent actually. I had no idea. It's okay. Shallow water doesn't bother me anymore. I'm just a bit scared of deep water. Siwoo mumbled, expressing his complicated emotions. If I had known, we should have just gone for a nice hotel stay instead. Hey now. I said it's fine. No, honestly, when I went to check out the waterfront earlier, I was amazed by the power of nature. I understand now why they say never to enter a stream when it's raining. What? Do you think I'm trembling because the stream water has risen? You do seem to be shaking a little. I am not. It was only because I was leaning on Siwoo's shoulder that my heartbeat felt like trembling. Dismissing Siwoo's concern, I told him to focus on grilling the meat properly. I really wanted to come here, even if it rained. Why? Why? Has he already forgotten what he said he wanted to do? You said it yourself. That you wanted to play a fantasia for your hands with me. Ah, swimming together, eating barbecue, playing a piano duet in a special atmosphere. He might have completely forgotten because of what happened to me earlier, so I should take the lead now. I can't always expect Siwoo to lead. Our relationship is something we build together. I can't just be led around. I really prepared hard for this, you know? I was very serious too. While I was proficient in solo pieces, I was a complete novice at duets. I never thought I'd sit on the same bench with someone to play in my entire life. Now that the opportunity had come, I practiced with all my heart. Even during times when I would normally be lounging around or waiting for Siwoo's messages, I was sitting at the piano. Look forward to it. I even brought separate clothes to wear for the performance. Chapter 115. Bad Boy. Thanks to the pension owner's excellent lighting setup, the barbecue area was essentially a charming outdoor restaurant. While I had resented the rain for preventing us from playing in the valley during our meal, I was grateful for it. It felt as if everyone else in the world had disappeared, leaving just the two of us enjoying a last supper in a cozy mountain villa. The bug zapper occasionally made loud noises as it caught insects drawn to the soft lights of the barbecue area, startling us both. But even that became a fun memory because we were startled together. The popping sound that I hadn't noticed while grilling meat was surprisingly loud. Each time, I bumped my shoulder against Siwoo, probably startling him too. Perhaps becoming a woman had made my heart weaker. Or maybe I was unconsciously expressing my desire to keep getting close to Siwoo. Not understanding my own feelings, I just smiled broadly and let it go. Anyway, as the night deepened, we finally stood side by side in front of the piano in the annex. Not in our usual clothes, but in attire reminiscent of the 1820s, the Romantic era of the Bourbon Restoration. Wait, weren't we supposed to be the only ones here? What could I do when they insisted on following out of concern? So I told them to bring our performance outfits while they were at it. Indeed, Kang HWI and my security detail had been discreetly following us. Since it was for my safety, I couldn't refuse them, so I asked them to bring along the clothes we'd need for our performance. Thanks to a few accompanying maids, within just 30 minutes, we were transformed into a couple of early 19th century performers. I gave Siwoo's cravat a French term for a necktie, a piece of lace or fabric wrapped around the neck and tied once in front, one final adjustment. With a pat-pat, I straightened the collar of his shirt and vest before sitting down at the piano bench first. I didn't just prepare this for you. I've been looking forward to this performance too. The annex had many windows, usually allowing warm natural light to flood the interior during filming. However, when a darker atmosphere was needed, all the curtains would be drawn, and the lighting fixtures throughout the annex would create a soft glow. Siwoo seemed to have drawn inspiration from Alert Channel videos. He had learned how to use the equipment from the pension owner in advance to create the perfect ambience. A scene began playing out in my mind. The idea for this fantasy came from the past Ki-won Min. After a party, when everyone had returned to their rooms and fallen asleep. As a young couple, we had sneaked into the quiet annex behind the mansion. While others engaged in physical conversation, we sought this place for a deep musical dialogue. In response, Siwoo cleared his throat to announce his presence. I turned my head from the piano bench and smiled gently. "You're here?" Siwoo shook his head. That wasn't right. I hadn't expected him to correct me so quickly. Laughing, I adjusted my speech. "You have arrived, sir." Only then did Siwoo seem satisfied, pulling at the corner of his mouth. "Have you been waiting long?" "No, sir. I just arrived." This was a small secret rendezvous, but not one to be ashamed of. Siwoo and I had now embodied Caroline Esterhazy, the beloved student, and Franz Schubert, the king of lieder. True to his reputation as a composer of many piano duets, he composed one even months before his death. That piece is what we're about to play now, Fantasy in F minor for 4 hands. The teacher created this piece to confess his love to his favorite student. Sadly, the piece was never used for that confession. Death came for him too quickly. This piece, released to the world just months before he died at the age of 31, might have been like a final testament expressing his dying sentiments. As if he couldn't fully express his feelings even in the 20-minute score, the ending feels both wistful and ringing. Why did you choose this piece, sir? As I began playing the soprano part to match Siwoo's alto that had started ahead, I finally asked the question I'd been holding in my heart. Turning to look, I saw Siwoo with his eyes closed, fully concentrated on the performance. He was completely immersing himself, matching the sounds and rhythm I produced. Yet even in the midst of that, he heard my voice. Because this piece expressed my feelings. He maintained his gentlemanly tone while his fingers danced passionately across the keys. What feelings do you mean? A desperate rhythm burning like fire. It seemed about to explode, but Schubert never allowed emotions to burst forth in his compositions. At this point, everyone thinks the surging, almost bursting tone will repeat and then end calmly. But no. In this piece, the teacher revealed at least some of his emotions. I am alive. I'm here, alive. Still alive. Death approaches, but I am alive. Life will end someday, but I am alive. That's why he sings like this, striking the keys as if wailing. My beloved student, Caroline. I love you so much. But I am dying soon. So I cannot speak. I don't want to cause you double sorrow with my death. I want to tell you. I desperately want to say it. That I love you. That I want you to be with me. But I cannot speak. Because I love you. So I will swallow my feelings. I don't want to burden her heart. Instead, join me in this cold winter dance. Remember this beautiful yet desperate final gesture. The teacher's voice, which seemed about to burst but never did, moved from forte to fortissimo. Still unable to speak, it hesitantly returned to piano softly. Then, as if leaving a final death cry, it rushed to fortissimo. Only to conclude in piano. The teacher couldn't convey his message through words or writing, but he succeeded in expressing it through music. But that's Schubert's story. Aren't we living completely different lives? Unlike the teacher who never conveyed his true feelings, we've confirmed our feelings for each other. That's why we're sitting side by side playing the piano together. I've been unable to speak for a long time. How long? For 14 years, I couldn't say it. Are you trying to say you've liked me since 14 years ago? Young Siwoo was a foolish man who prioritized piano over Min Ki-won until they met again at the cafe this February. Is he lying? I smiled wryly and looked at Siwoo instead of the keyboard, curious to hear what he would say. Siwoo was still playing with his eyes closed, seemingly with no intention of looking at me. Perhaps keeping his eyes closed made it easier for him to confess something. But what? What exactly does he want to say? I love you. I like you. He'd already blurted those out clearly in front of the Seoul Arts Center ticket box. The truth is, at the end of the piece's introduction, there's a trace of the teacher's cry. But it's not a section for opening one's heart and freely expressing emotions. Siwoo spoke as if performing, precisely following the dynamics marked in the score. 14 years ago, I hated you very much. It was just a moment, but I felt as if my consciousness was severed. I was still playing the piano, but for a brief instant, there was a confusion of memories. There was a reason why I couldn't remember Ki-won at 6 years old. I didn't like Min Ki-won. At first, I hated her. Then I resented her. Finally, I disliked her. Then, after regaining our original bodies, we parted ways as if reconciled. Do you remember? The day our bodies were switched, I was so shocked that I burst into tears. In front of Min Ki-won, young Siwoo showed all sorts of unseemly behavior. When he found her doll, Ki-won had been crying. But after becoming Ki-won, Siwoo cried even more than she had. He asked what to do now if he would have to live like this forever. Ki-won, a year younger, comforted, consoled, and soothed this foolish me. At that time, Min Ki-won was just a child like me, and even a year younger. Yet despite her own anxiety, she was grateful to be with Siwoo's Giwon and did her best to reassure him. For Siwoo's sake, she would do anything. Though afraid of horses, she readily nodded when Siwoo's Giwon wanted to ride one. After our bodies returned to normal and I went home, I realized it then. I was not a man worthy of a wonderful woman like you. So I distanced myself. I tried to forget. I prayed that instead of a guy like me, you would meet a better man and fall in love. 6-year-old young Siwoo buried all those memories out of guilt, which is why he only recalled her existence when he heard her piano performance after meeting her again. It wasn't that he loved piano more than Min Ki-won, but you wanted to embrace even an unworthy man like me. That warm heart of yours made me realize I was being foolish. I hope you will accept this inadequate man's apology. Now I understand why Siwoo chose this piece today. Using this composition that Schubert wrote to convey his true feelings as our backdrop, he wanted us to have an open and honest conversation as well. There's no need to apologize for that. Thank you, truly. Then, let me ask just one more thing. As it happens, I had revealed a vulnerability at the swimming pool that Siwoo could probe. I heard many stories through your maid. Before coming here, I even asked if you might be afraid of water. Like my past self, the me from 3 years ago was extremely thorough. But I never heard that you almost drowned in a river. If he knew, Kang Hwi would have told me. For your safety. The performance continues, but Siwoo's gaze is now directed at me. He's abandoned the theatrical speech. He was sincerely concerned about me and asking for the truth. So, will you tell me properly after we finish playing? Chapter 116. The dishonest you. Just then, I had exposed a weakness that Siwoo could exploit at the swimming pool. I heard many things through your maid. Before coming here, I even asked if you might be afraid of water. Just like my past self, the me from 3 years ago was incredibly thorough. However, I never heard that you almost drowned in a river. If Gang we knew, she would have told me. For your safety. The performance continues, but Siwoo's gaze is now directed at me. He had also abandoned his previously serious theatrical tone. He was genuinely concerned about me and asking for the truth. So, will you tell me properly after the performance is over? That was something that would happen 3 years in the future, something that should never come to pass. Part of me tried to convince myself that it would be fine to have an honest conversation with Siwoo and work through this together. I almost gave in, almost spilled the truth even before the performance ended. But in the end, I couldn't open my mouth. Siwoo's death 3 years later was like a prophecy to him. And all tragedies begin the moment one hears the prophecy. It's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. The theory that when a group repeatedly takes a proposition as the background for their actions, they inevitably become what they believe. Why did Ragnarok occur? There could be countless causes, but the primary one was Odin imprisoning Loki's children after witnessing the world's destruction in his dream, claiming he would prevent it. Oedipus's tragedy was the same. After hearing the oracle, he walked straight into tragedy while trying to avoid the fate it foretold. Would Siwoo be any different? To begin with, how many people could maintain a normal life after hearing they would die in 3 years? It would be normal to tremble every day thinking about the approaching day of death. Wherever you go, whatever you do, you'd live in fear, not knowing when death might strike. That's why I can't tell him. I mustn't tell him. This secret is merely an event that once happened in another timeline, something only I should know. If you want to create a convincing and perfect lie, build it on top of the truth. I revealed only half the truth to Siwoo, completely omitting the part about 3 years later. Actually, I came from a parallel world. A world exactly the same as this one, but slightly different. At those words, Siwoo's performance faltered momentarily, but that was all. After transforming that brief stumble into a kind of emotion, Siwoo continued his performance. A parallel world? What nonsense. It's not nonsense. These days, the media talks about the metaverse all the time. That may be true, but as the music rushed toward its climax, I emphasized with an accented voice that there wasn't a single lie in what I had said. It's true. And in the parallel world, I almost drowned in a river last year. That's why I'm afraid of deep water. He might want to doubt me, but he can't. Because Siwoo firmly believes that I share the same self as him. So he'll believe me. He'll accept my outlandish story as truth. Please do, young Siwoo. Well, I won't pry any further. It must be an unpleasant memory for you. Thank you. No. I'm sorry for trying to force it out of you. And thank you for answering anyway. You believe me? Of course. Siwoo spoke, drawing a parallel to Schubert, who could only convey his true feelings through the piano as he faced death. Like the maestro, there are many people who can't express their true feelings directly and have to find roundabout ways. That's why I'm grateful that you told me properly. The heightened emotion of the performance suddenly fades like someone facing death. And with a faint, tender conversation between the two, the piece comes to an end. After finishing the performance, Siwoo remained at the piano for a while, gently resting his hands on the keys, lost in thought. I quietly stood by his side, waiting for him to accept my clever lie in his heart. For some time now, I had vaguely sensed it. Min Ki-won claimed that young Siwoo's personality had been copied and overlaid onto her own self. But for that to be true, she knew far too many things that Siwoo didn't know. You said he's a bad person, so why do you keep meeting him? Just a small revenge. Nothing to worry about. She talked about getting revenge on a senior named Yoon Ji whom she'd never even met. I've decided to tutor Chunga starting next week. Suddenly, she offered to substitute for Beek Chunga's private lessons, someone she'd never even been introduced to. Don't you think this will definitely be on the exam? They'd set questions like this. Why? Every problem she pointed out as likely to appear on the exam actually did. No, I almost drowned. In a river. Really? It wasn't that long ago, quite recent actually. She tried to deceive Siwoo with clumsy lies. Recent, she said. If that were true, there's no way Gangwee wouldn't remember. She's someone who genuinely cares about Min Ki-won. Young Siwoo, who rarely believed in fictional stories and was a realist, received things differently when it came to stories about Ki-won and himself. Actually, I came from a parallel world. A world exactly the same as this one, but slightly different. The claim about coming from a parallel world might be true. But if that's really the case, several unresolved questions arise. How did the parallel world's young Siwoo end up in this world? Landing in Min Ki-won's body could be explained as an accidental crash landing, but why did he leave his original world to come here? Could it be death? Did his parallel self meet death and coincidentally settle in this world's Ki-won? A parallel world? What nonsense. It's not nonsense. These days, the media talks about the metaverse all the time. That may be true, but a parallel world. But what if the time period was different? That would explain how she could give lectures as if she'd read the professor's mind. All of Min Ki-won's strange behaviors would align logically. It's true. And in the parallel world, I almost drowned in a river last year. That's why I'm afraid of deep water. If she came from the future and was trying to avoid all the misfortunes she experienced by solving various problems around Siwoo now. If those problems involved Beek Chungha and Yoon Ji-yu. If she said last year but actually meant death would come in the future. Everything fits together plausibly. It becomes a clear signpost pointing to one fact. You really came from the future? Siwoo stared at Ki-won, but she was pretending to focus on the performance, avoiding his gaze. In other words, it wasn't the right time yet. Well, I won't pry any further. It must be an unpleasant memory for you. So Siwoo took a step back. It wasn't a story he could extract by pushing anyway. Who in the world would believe such a story? That she died once in the future. That she was revived and somehow ended up in the body of his first love. No matter how much Siwoo opened his heart and said he was ready to listen to everything, Kiwon would ultimately not reveal her true feelings. It's a difficult story to tell, even if the other person is yourself. She'll tell me someday. Though he couldn't know what had happened, he felt certain that together, they could overcome whatever came their way. After finishing the performance, still resting his hands on the piano keys, Siwoo prayed and prayed that Kiwon would someday tell him the truth. A perfect and beautiful duet in a dreamlike piano room on a rainy night. The parts of themselves they revealed while sitting shoulder to shoulder were more valuable than any words. Though some stories remained untold, an unforgettable memory was created for both of them. And then, was the bed always like this? I told you, you'd be reminded of home. A canopy bed fit for royalty welcomed the two as if it had been waiting for them. Then I'll sleep on the sofa and you take the bed. To Kiwon, who still thought of him as a patient with broken ribs, Siwoo said what he wanted to say as a man. Let's sleep together on the bed. Kiwon, who had been staring blankly at Siwoo, gradually turned red. Soon, trying to hide her flushed face with her hands, she mumbled, What are you saying? We're not at that stage yet. Are we? Judging by her broken vocabulary, she seemed quite shocked, but he hadn't suggested it wanting to cross any lines. Siwoo smiled reassuringly. Let's just sleep. I really won't do anything. How can I believe that? Don't you trust me? If he had wanted to, Siwoo could have devoured Kiwon at any time. But he didn't. He respected Min Kiwon's self and the other self that coexisted with her. In fact, until today, despite numerous body tackles from Min Kiwon, he had endured them all. There was a crisis earlier because of the swimsuit, but he managed to get through it somehow. It was a moment when he realized that reason is stronger than instinct. Siwoo had the right to say trust me. In the end, Min Kiwon had no choice but to accept the proposal, licking her lips. It was a choice they could make because they knew each other so well. If your hands wander, I'll castrate you immediately. Threatening, yes. But could she, who cherishes young Siwoo more than anyone else, actually harm him? Not a chance. Siwoo wrapped his arm around Kiwon's shoulders as she curled up like a frightened hamster. Shall we go brush our teeth? Kiwon, who had been startled and fidgeting, pushed Siwoo away with her shoulder and exclaimed, I'm brushing alone. Chapter 117. Lady Eclairte. The small lamp by the bedside gently illuminated the room. Outside the window, rain continued to fall. We were looking at each other in silence. As if we would keep gazing like this, never falling asleep. Having missed the timing to speak because everything happened so quickly, I finally realized I had a chance to revisit Siwoo's performance from earlier. Hey. Yeah. Earlier, your color. It came back a little. Really? It seems he was so preoccupied thinking about me that he didn't even notice the color returning to his performance. Just how much were you thinking about me? Staring at me instead of the piano while playing, I thought I would die of embarrassment from his gaze, but did Siwoo not realize it? Today, it was quite enjoyable, wasn't it? Yeah, it was incredibly fun. I guess that's why. You were right. When your heart feels ticklish, the black color gradually fades away. All the things we did together today acted as catalysts, making Siwoo shine brighter than ever while performing. Of course, he darkened again when he asked about the secret I was hiding, but except for that moment he was much brighter than usual. It felt like gaining a flashlight on a mountain path without streetlights. Though we almost had a genre shift from romance to horror when he suddenly brought up that eerie story in that atmosphere. Anyway, this pension trip was extremely successful. Enough to make me look forward to Siwoo's performance at the Dongyang competition. Well, the situation earlier was a bit suggestive. What was suggestive? It wasn't suggestive at all. It was suggestive. Siwoo closed his eyes and smiled contentedly. Think about it. It's the place where you always communicate with your subscribers through videos. When I thought about you playing just for me there, it felt really strange. What are you saying? That I'm some kind of pervert? No way. Sadly, I couldn't help but agree. Is this what it feels like to deviate from the norm in a place unknown to others? Thinking that only Siwoo knows a side of Min Ki-won that no one else does, it certainly stirred some dark desires. I'm already so excited thinking about doing various things with you in the future. That's me too. Where should we go first? You don't need to ask. Wherever you go is where I want to go. Siwoo furrowed his brow and chuckled. If you always do things just for me, when will you take care of yourself? Doing things for you is doing things for myself, I'm telling you. You know that sounds like something mothers would say, right? Like if my son is full, I'm full too or something? Don't suddenly turn me into a mother when that wasn't my intention, young Siwoo. Taking care of you is taking care of myself. Don't think I'm doing too much for you. Just think of it as natural. You don't need to thank me. I'm doing it all for myself. However, to Siwoo, those words must have sounded like unconditional sacrifice, as he soon looked at me with a pitying gaze. I'm really happy you say that, but still. His hand approached smoothly and lightly brushed my forehead. I thought it would just tickle slightly, but my whole body trembled as if I suddenly felt a chill. Still, if there's something you want to do or something you desire, tell me. If it's something I can do, I'll do it somehow. No, even if it's something I can't do, I'll work hard to make it possible. I don't want that. I just want young Siwoo to do well. Min Ki-won's life has turned out extremely well. Just being with Siwoo has achieved 99% of life's happiness. If we could just continue to get along like this, I could say that would be all the happiness I need. So instead of thinking about me, think about your future first. Focus on achieving your goal of becoming a pianist who amazes the world, like Teacher List. That would make me happy, Ki-won. Are you asleep? Even though it seemed like a day without anything special, I was getting sleepy, perhaps because it had drained me more than I thought. Good night. As I closed my eyes, my consciousness gradually blurred. Even in that state, I responded to Siwoo's good night. You too, good night. A cold sensation transmitted to my skin, startling me awake. In the pension bedroom, I should have fallen asleep with the air conditioner on and covered by a blanket. But somehow, I was underwater. That dark, murky water from just before death. Surroundings where I couldn't see an inch ahead. I could breathe, but my body was drifting aimlessly with the flow of water. Even moving my hands and feet, I couldn't swim and just spun around in the water for a while. It's impossible. You can't get out of here. A voice came from somewhere. It was a voice I'd heard before. The very voice I heard just before dying. When I turned my head this way and that, flipped my body to check below the water, but Min Ki-won was nowhere to be found. Silly. You are Min Ki-won. We may be one now, but originally we weren't. The silly one isn't me but you. You who ran away leaving everything to me. Swallowing the words that were about to burst out from frustration, I continued swimming, searching for Ki-won. Where are you? Don't just talk, come out here. Hearing the voice was nice, but I wanted to talk face to face. However, no matter how much I swam, I couldn't see anything. I couldn't even tell which way was up or down. I didn't know if I was sinking or rising. It felt like I was just spinning in place. Eventually, after swimming for a long time, I gave up looking for Ki-won and stopped in place. What do you mean I can't get out of here? This is the grave of abandoned selves. It's where selves that have passed through Min Ki-won's body and are no longer useful are submerged. It's not 0. That means it's one of the selves from 1 to 25. Then like the other selves, yes. You're no longer worthy of being outside. 0 has simply reclaimed control. There's nothing surprising about it. It's only natural. Then where are the rest? Kiwon had 25 cells at that. The voice that had sounded as one split into many. As if someone had copied the same voice in an audio editing program and pasted it with a few frames difference. Do we still feel like one to you? Startled, I stopped in place and covered my ears. But the sound seemed to be transmitted through my mind, so covering my ears didn't help. You seem scared. Just kidding. The voice merged back into one. I removed my fingers from my ears and looked around again. Still, nothing was visible. It felt like I was having a bad dream. I can't get out. No, you absolutely can't leave. You're trapped here. You can't escape until Min Kiwon dies. It was Kiwon's voice, but as I kept listening, I noticed slight differences. It was a younger voice than the current me, 19-year-old Min Kiwon. Not certain, but it sounded about mid-teens. With a hopeful heart, I called her special name. Lady Echlert. Ahem. The owner of the surprised voice cleared her throat loudly. It seemed I had hit the mark. Suddenly, the dark surroundings began to brighten. With each blink, the scenery changed, and I, who had clearly been in deep water, was now standing high in the sky among clouds. It was definitely the sky with nothing below, yet I could see floating islands and cherry trees. Pink petals were falling like snow along with the clouds. HMPH. I was trying to play a prank, but now I've lost interest. What emerged from among the clouds was Min Kiwon, looking about 15 years old. It was Lady Echlert, who wielded a real sword instead of a baton. The sword at her waist proved her identity. Hey, newbie. How did you know it was me right away? The voice, it was just like you. Echlert pushed up the hood that had been covering one of her eyes. Whether she just wanted to portray a one-eyed swordsman or not, both eyes were fine. Her furrowed eyes stared at me for a while, and soon Echlert snorted. You're creepy. Ahaha, well. Nice to meet you, Echlert. Call me Lady Echlert. How impudent. Ching. I immediately switched to formal speech to avoid the real sword that came to my neck. Her hand movements were surprisingly swift. To swing that heavy sword so effortlessly. It's an honor to meet you, Lady Echlert. That's better. You should have done that from the start. Did Lady Echlert swallow the other selves? Echlert sheathed the dangerous object back into its scabbard, took a step closer to me, and tilted her head. Didn't we all let you hear us earlier, you fool? Ack! The flying scabbard nearly split my head in two. Though it was a dream, so I didn't feel any pain. Anyway, there's a reason I called you here. What kind of reason? I was frustrated, that's why, frustrated. Lady Echlert glared at me and pointed her finger at the bridge of my nose as if to poke it. How could you fall asleep in such a good atmosphere? As if she couldn't understand my actions at all, Echlert jumped up and down, fuming. Falling asleep without doing anything. Really, what do you think romance is? Do you even want to be in a relationship? Realizing one thing belatedly, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. At the swimming pool too. How could you create such a heavy atmosphere? You should have seduced him gently, brushing against his body. You frustrating person. Lady Echlert was a severe case of middle school syndrome. An even bigger abaku than Yoon Jicheng. Chapter 118. Not even knowing the first letter of love, can you really fall asleep in such a nice atmosphere? Acting as if he couldn't understand my behavior at all, Echlert jumped around in frustration. Falling asleep without doing anything. Really, what do you think romance is? Do you even want to be in a relationship? Realizing something belatedly, I couldn't help but let out a hollow laugh. At the swimming pool too. How could you create such a heavy atmosphere so suddenly? You should have been subtly brushing against her body, gently seducing her. You clueless fool. Lady Echlert was a severe case of middle school syndrome. She was an even bigger apaku than Yoon Jae-chang. But the mood felt awkward for a kiss. You pervert. Were you already thinking about that? How sneaky. What? Isn't a kiss the natural thing to do in that situation? How indecent. Please, could you turn off that website in your head? I don't know much about dating either since I learned it from books. But I could tell that Eclarte had picked up all the wrong lessons from somewhere. Huh? Really? I knew seducing a clueless man was the hardest thing in the world. But to this extent I thought we were already moving quite fast. But apparently Eclarte wouldn't be satisfied unless Siwu was conquered even more quickly. Well, considering Zero who had become one with me, it made sense. She was always looking only at Siwu. She had a tendency to drag him to bed at any opportunity, creating an environment from which he couldn't escape, trying to make it a fait accompli. That rampaging heart. The condensed love that I once described as a powder keg. Even now, I was managing it very precariously. The powder keg had turned into a heart, and the explosion had changed to a flutter. But still, the emotions were stirred and the body had a mind of its own. When we lay side by side on the bed, when we looked at each other and smiled, did I really feel nothing? All sorts of thoughts crossed my mind. What should I do now? What comes next? What does Siwu want to do now? If he's going to do something, I wish he'd do it quickly. I hope he's not planning to touch me after I fall asleep. I'm tired, and then I fell asleep. I asked the fuming Eclarte. Please give some advice to this clueless person, lady. HMPH, you should figure that out yourself. How long are you going to rely on my help? How long? Does that mean Ki-1 had sought ladies' help before? By any chance did Zero seek your advice before I, number 26, appeared? She did. HMPH. But she never properly followed through on anything. I suppose so. In reality, Min Ki-1 had lingered around me but never properly made a move beyond orchestrating sudden encounters. Our parting when I was 6 and she was 5 probably wasn't a pleasant memory. She must have been quite surprised when I, who had completely forgotten the past, approached her first. That's why she didn't know what to do, whether she could confess, whether she could be close like before. She must have agonized countless times. It was partly because I was obsessed with the piano and didn't pay attention to her. But the complicated memories from childhood also had an impact. So what? You want advice from me too? On what to do? Yes, I'd appreciate it. Really, there's no helping it. I'll have to tell you. Eclarte crossed her arms and said with a haughty expression, you need to be more proactive. That's what makes romance fun. Think about how we feel watching you. We're dying of frustration here. We who are watching? Yes. From number 1 to me, everyone is watching your romance. That's the only entertainment in a place like this. Lately, Siwu has been so proactive that everyone's been squealing with delight. Such simpletons. But not you, lady. I was the loudest of all. Wait, you rascal. Ugh. HMPH. The scabbard drawing a large semicircle once again struck my crown. I still felt no pain. Anyway, as much as Siwu is being proactive, you should be too. Can you clap with just one hand? At this rate, you'll become an old maid before you know it. Do you know how many times we've gone through similar situations? I'm sorry, but where exactly did you learn such expressions? From professional literature, dear. That can't be right. Is she stupid? To begin with, numbers 1 through 25 must be children. Is it okay to show them this kind of thing? It doesn't seem good for their education. At those words, Eclarte snickered. What are you saying? Do we look like children to you? I stared blankly at Eclarte. Though she was cosplaying as a swordswoman quite convincingly, she was clearly just a young girl in her mid-teens. In fact, she appeared in Min Ki-1's life when she was 16, right? And what about numbers 1 through 24 who appeared before her? They showed genius musical talent, but they were all just children between the ages of 6 and 15. Getting distracted by appearances. Eclarte clicked her tongue and shook her head. Wait, Are you saying that you and the other selves aren't children? Can't you tell just by looking? It's confusing when she keeps saying this with such a youthful face. From number 1 to 25 Eclarte, there was evidence that all those selves weren't ordinary children. It was their genius musical talent, beyond simply listening, feeling, and expressing. Their instrumental performances suggested professionals with at least 10 years of experience. The young lady frequently changed instruments, but she played exceptionally well each time. It was as if she had entered a room of time and spirit by herself. Once she picked up an instrument, she would amaze everyone within a month, I tell you. A month is just a figure of speech. Could she really have done that in just a month? Probably not. All the selves before I came were said to be Min Ki-won, but there's no rule saying that Min Ki-won had to belong to this world. Even I came from the future of another world. Perhaps. Lady from another world 3 years in the future. Eclarte's eyes widened as she looked at me. Did I hit the mark? Oh my, it's time to wake up. Now. Wait, she suddenly pushed my body. My floating body was thrust away and buried in the clouds. Beep, beep, beep. Beep, beep, beep. A massive emergency buzzer sound like an air raid siren filled the surroundings. It's too loud. Ugh, I flailed my arms and grabbed my phone. Then slid to turn off the obnoxious alarm. It's morning. Did she push me out of the unconscious world because it was time to wake up? Not at all. My question had hit Lady Eclarte's weak spot. I'm 90% certain. Min Ki-won's selves came from the future. I don't know how they came, but unlike Ki-won who majored in piano, they all specialized in different instruments. That's why they could switch instruments at such a young age, in such a short time. Because they had already reached their peak once before. I have no way of knowing if their world was the same as mine, nor is it important enough to find out. What was important was something else. Anyway, as much as Siwoo is being proactive, you should be too. Can you clap with just one hand? At this rate, you'll become an old maid before you know it. Do you know how many times we've gone through similar situations? All the other Min Ki-wons had met similar endings with Siwoo. In every universe, Siwoo and Ki-won had clearly ended things ambiguously without ever getting together. Why were they watching my romance with Siwoo so excitedly? Because none of them had ever succeeded. Because this was happening for the first time. In dozens of repeated lives, not once had they succeeded in their romance, and now it was finally happening. How could they not be at maximum excitement? It's quite absurd. Among countless Min Ki-wons, not a single one succeeded in a romance with young Siwoo, and in the end, they brought me in to make it happen. But the effect is so clear that even I find it hard to argue against it. Having failed in so many universes, Siwoo and I were clearly a difficult match. Yet, overcoming such obstacles, we are now a couple. It feels solemn, as if carrying out an important mission for humanity. In this world, we have overcome countless hardships to receive divine blessing. I must never let this opportunity slip away. I'll maintain this good relationship and make it all the way to marriage. I got up and stretched. Nothing has changed. Whatever about the universe, past lives, or Min Ki-wons from other worlds. None of that matters. The current me loves young Siwoo. I want to be with him forever. He can't do without me, and I can't do without him. I just need to live while cherishing this feeling that I want to protect him from anything that might happen. Still half asleep, Siwoo stirred and pulled at my waist. I tilted sideways and lay down in front of Siwoo's chest. His arms pulling me in were as firm as the iron bars of a solid prison. I couldn't escape, neither from his embrace nor from his heart. Siwoo, are you asleep? I'll handle my own romance. The love between young Siwoo and Min Ki-won will progress naturally. I just need to make sure it stays on course. Both Lady and I were equally ignorant about romance. But at least I had started a relationship. As they say, well begun is half done. I was already far ahead of Akorte. Hee hee. You fool who doesn't know how warm Siwoo's embrace is. Envy me and become an old maid. Chapter 119. Why are you coming out of there, bro? The month felt like a year, partly because it was the last month of the half year remaining until I became an adult. But in truth, it was for another reason. I went around everywhere with Siwoo constantly. So much that small blisters formed on my feet. Our range of activities was so wide that it felt like we did everything we wanted to do within the month of July. Siwoo was proactive and took the initiative. I'm not sure if it helped that I said I would follow him wherever he went. At least he never hesitated when making decisions because of me. That's why I liked it. Rather than being hesitant, he clearly expressed his opinions, and instead of worrying about how I might object to his decisions, he was prepared to persuade me with let's try it together even if I did object. Did he worry at all? Though I did give him a push, he was very proactive. He knew well that I wouldn't refuse when he suggested going somewhere. And he also knew that I would say sure when he suggested doing something. This is totally a marketing ploy, right? Want me to buy it for you? After finishing our aquarium trip, I couldn't possibly ignore the beluga plush that was there. It was because of the commotion that happened at the dolphin tank. No thanks. I don't like this guy. Why? You seemed to really like it. The aquarium's only beluga whale must have mistaken me for a mermaid, as it kept swimming around me and making squeaking noises the whole time. The loud sounds kept repeating, drawing everyone's attention. Someone said beluga cries sound like canaries, but no way. It was so loud that it would take 50 canaries to make the same sound. The creature only stopped crying when I turned to look at it, and it continued squeaking for a while even after I left, so the handler probably had quite a hard time. It's asking you to take it home. Why don't you just carry one away? If I had developed any feelings for it, they would have been feelings of annoyance. That's why I brought it home. Will you be okay? What about you? The next place we headed to was a theme park. Since there were only 2 theme parks near Seoul, we visited both over 2 days. Both of us were ground-dwelling humans who didn't particularly like heights, but that day, for whatever reason, we stood in line for the roller coaster with the determination to ride every existing attraction. I don't think this is going to be okay. Me neither. Your language skills are broken. No, you crazy fool. Taking courage was good, and it was nice to be able to hold Siwoo's hand tightly throughout the ride, but after screaming our lungs out and fixing our disheveled hair when we got off, we felt empty. It was far too late to regret not knowing how scary the ride would be. Stopping briefly on the exit path, we looked at each other's haggard faces and asked with our eyes, "Are we really going to ride the others too?" We said we would. Yeah, but having come all this way to play, it would be a shame not to ride everything. I heard that other people feel the suspension bridge effect when riding roller coasters together. For us, we held each other's hands tightly just to survive. After riding 3 types of roller coasters, we were convinced that the boundary between life and death is not as far as one might think. Humans are easily killed, insignificant, and so very weak. I never want to ride again, I agree. Is your stomach okay? Arg. And I realized that Siwoo had a weaker stomach than I did. You weren't okay. I'm starting to feel better now. At least you didn't throw up on the roller coaster. Wow, that's truly horrifying just to think about. Even I was dumbfounded by what I said. But somehow we both found it funny and spent the rest of the time laughing. When everything we said made each other laugh, how could we not say it was enjoyable? It was painful, but it was fun. A truly ironic situation. It was around this time that I began to vaguely feel that I might be addicted to Siwoo. Without him, the day was boring. With him, the day was fun. It felt like emotions turned on and off like a switch. It was amazing how one person could change me so much. And the same was true for Siwoo. You'd think we'd get tired of seeing each other every day. But it feels weirder on days when we don't see each other. Drew, have we had any days recently when we didn't see each other's faces? No, almost none. You'd think he might say at least once that he was too busy to come, or that he had personal matters to attend to. But Siwoo never skipped our walks, because he was certain that he could meet me when he came to see Strelka. If he had no other plans, he would drag out our walks. Being on school vacation, he wanted to spend more time with me. I fully understood his feelings, and since I also didn't want to be apart, our walks kept getting longer. Strelka got more excited and playful when we played with her longer. At some point, the dog started feeling that a 30-minute walk was too short. Look at her now. Woof, she wants to run more. Thanks to her, my stamina has really improved. How are your knees? You need to be able to press the pedals. My knees are fine, thank you. I'm not in my 40s yet. Siwoo threw the ball energetically toward Strelka, who was running ahead, then gestured to me and started running toward the lawn. Even I, who would normally have been exhausted and collapsed on a bench by now, had become so accustomed to this routine that I followed Siwoo without hesitation. That's how the month of July passed, swift yet not too swift, but certainly the most memorable month of my life. On a day 2 weeks before August, I visited Channel Largissimo's studio for a rehearsal of their hidden camera content. Welcome, A. Have you practiced enough? Yes. I practiced until just before bed yesterday. You were so confident, still need to practice, right? It's a competition against a professional. How many times in life would I get to compete against a professional pianist? I can say with certainty that it would be countable on one hand. It's like an amateur about to make their professional debut going one-on-one against a pro gamer. It's somewhat balanced by letting the amateur use a champion they're skilled with. But I filled even that balance with classical pieces. It's an extremely favorable situation for the professional pianist. But Min Ki-won is no ordinary player. There's no way she'll lose. Though it was just a coincidence, the moment I realized Ki-won's true career, I understood why she was so skilled at expressing her own color. Why she seemed to be in an untouchable realm. It was only natural. We might have been comparable on piano alone, but when adding up all the time spent playing other instruments, Min Ki-won was my senior by an incredible margin. Her playing was like cherry blossoms in spring, and it was the essence of music born from the memories and experiences of many versions of Min Ki-won that came with each April, her birthday. That's why her arrangements sounded so beautiful, and why she felt like the goal I should aspire to. The dark performances I had built up from age 6 to 23, a total of 17 years, were like a drop of ink falling into the sea of performances that 26-year-old Min Ki-won had accumulated. It could spread widely and darken the entire water, but it couldn't affect her entire performance. Siwoo is a genius. And the more impressive Min Ki-won became, the more impressive young Siwoo became. Despite his modest career compared to Min Ki-won's carpet of achievements, Siwoo began to regain his lost color through simple heart flutters and sweet tingles. I can't lose either. As much as young Siwoo moves forward, I too must lead him from further ahead, so he doesn't fall behind. Beyond being just a senior in life, I've now become a senior in musical career as well. For me, who wants to remove anything that could block his path, Mr. Yoon Guancheol is just a small hurdle. I will shake off these minor interferences and move forward. I will ensure that no one else can stand in the way of Siwoo and me. Ah, I heard the opposing pianist has arrived. Shall we go greet them? I nodded and stood up. Who could it be? What kind of person would volunteer to be my opponent? Today is the first time we're confirming who our opponents are, but naturally, as the amateur, I was more nervous and anxious. There's no point in praying for a weak opponent. The professional world is cold and only the strong survive. Whoever comes out will be someone recognized by the public and industry as a performer superior to me. Come on. Bring it on. I will face you sincerely, ta-da. This is pianist Zhou Jinyol. Zhou Jinyol, a senior among seniors who graduated from Korea National University of Arts 3 years ago. Nice to meet you. I'm Zhou Jinyol, the one who placed second in the 2020 Chopin competition. My role model and the mountain I need to overcome as I challenge the 2025 Chopin competition. He was standing right in front of me, with a warm smile as if looking forward to our competition. With mixed feelings of joy and bewilderment, I lost my composure and bowed deeply while raising my voice. Hello, Chapter 120, Cowardly, the winner of second place at the 2020 Chopin competition. My role model and the mountain I must overcome as I challenge the 2025 Chopin competition. He was standing right before me, with a warm smile, as if eagerly anticipating our confrontation. In a complex emotional state of both joy and bewilderment, I lost my composure, raised my voice, and bowed deeply. Hello. When I raised my head again, Zhou Jinyol was wearing a smile reminiscent of Picasso. Far from childlike innocence, yet as innocent as a child when in front of a piano. He was looking at me as a fellow pianist. And as a senior, to think I'd be granted such an honor. Young Siwoo was someone I might not even meet after winning a competition. Well, I suppose if I'd asked my professor, they might have arranged a meeting somehow. But even making such a request was too burdensome for me. Actually, when I heard I'd be competing against someone who streams piano performances, I was a bit complacent. But wow! The moment I saw you, Clert, I just felt my competitive spirit boiling. I never dreamed Largissimo team would prepare an event like this. This legend is even shouting out my name right in front of me. Please stop. I might lose my mind listening to this. Why are you doing this to me? Is this a professional strategy to break my spirit beforehand? A stronger opponent who has the upper hand in relative skill never needs to look down on, mock, or provoke their opponent. Just praising them like this is enough to make them crumble. Why would anyone do something that diminishes their own value? I'm absolutely not targeting Mr. Yoon Guancheol with that comment. Oh no. The honor is all mine. I was so curious about who would appear. I never imagined it would be Senior Zhou Jinyol Sr. Did you attend Korea National University of Arts? Oops, a mistake. No. I meant a senior walking the same path of piano. That kind of meaning, aha. Ahaha. Haha. Right. Of course. I'm not saying only those who attend Korea National University of Arts are my juniors. Haha. Of course. Naturally. We clasped hands and shook them lightly up and down. The junior who so desperately wanted to follow in the footsteps of our university senior is finally greeting you like this. It's truly an honor. I'm so excited to see what kind of competition this will be. Or something like that. Is this okay? Not just any pianist, but Zhou Jinyol. I was excited for a moment about meeting someone I respect, but thinking about it now, I might be in serious trouble. It's not just any pianist, it's Zhou Jinyol. He's a piano prodigy and genius who came within one step of winning the Chopin competition, something that had never happened in Korea before. He was 22 when the competition was held in 2021. Now he's 25. I gave up on making a name for myself as a pianist at 23, so there's truly an enormous difference between us. In my mind, I've won competitions many times. But what does that matter? I didn't have a single actual title. While I always dreamed of standing shoulder to shoulder with him, reality wasn't so accommodating. It was painful, if anything, never hopeful. But this time is different. Young Siwoo is regaining his color, and I'm just waiting for the moment he becomes a true dark horse. I can make him shine. The ghost of my past failures will become light to support him. Zhou Jinyol was second place. Siwoo just needs to get first place. We just need to spend the remaining 2 years until 2025 productively. Siwoo needs a good senior too. How much advice could I give myself? And how seriously would I take advice from myself? In the end, for someone to grow, they need to either realize things directly or hear it from a senior they respect. In that sense, I felt I needed to arrange a meeting between Mr. Zhou Jinyol and Siwoo. Anyway, I practiced really hard. And I'm confident I can win. Mr. Zhou Jinyol laughed loudly and clapped his hands repeatedly. If my opponent is a clerk, I should be prepared to lose. Come at me with everything you've got. I've made thorough preparations too. The background music for the 3 Archangel bosses from the Mystery Challenge in Aesora Memories, I practiced it diligently. He likes the pick I chose. How many shoutouts am I getting from my idol today? I'm glad I'm alive. Honestly, when I heard it was game background music, I thought it would be relatively simple, but wow. Frankly, I think even Liszt would say this is quite difficult. I heard you wrote this arrangement yourself. Ah yes. That's true, that's really amazing. I listened to the original too. There's almost no difference. It really felt like a single piano taking on the role of an entire band. The praise kept flowing endlessly. It went beyond a senior looking after a junior, it contained genuine respect. Am I interpreting this too much in my favor? No, really, I'm not. When someone shows such pure enthusiasm for music, and the subject is Min Ki-won me, do you think I can't tell the difference? Absolutely not. It's a shame I didn't know about this great channel before. When I heard who my opponent was today, I immediately subscribed. Want to see? It's true. He really subscribed. I would have been happy even if it was just a courtesy for today. But is it really just a courtesy? Someone of Zhou Jinyol's caliber would have people lining up to admire him without needing to engage in social niceties. Yet he still enjoyed interacting with the world like a proper adult, appearing on various talk shows, showing his face on entertainment programs, fulfilling his duty as a celebrity to promote Korea's national prestige and spread classical culture. Even winning my favor now by telling me he subscribed is a step toward the future. Ah, you've already subscribed to my channel. Thank you. I'm embarrassed. Come on. What are you saying? There's no need to be embarrassed. Anyone majoring in piano would have honestly watched the finals of the Chopin competition 2 years ago with bated breath. In response to my sincere compliment, Mr. Zhou Jinyol waved his hands dismissively and complimented me even more in return. Our relay of compliments seemed endless, so what was the result? Honestly, we should be thanking people like you, a clerk. Because classical music is, frankly, closer to the culture of the wealthy, and the number of people appreciating it is decreasing day by day. I think increasing accessibility is the right approach. Of course, it would be problematic to destroy the unique musical characteristics of classical music, but honestly, I think arrangements at your level, a clerk, can be considered classical music. While I was moved by words so different from those who had urged me not to waste time on animation, games, and YouTube at this rate, I felt like I might declare defeat even before the competition began, so I bowed my head slightly. It's difficult to express how truly, truly overwhelmed I am by this endless shower of compliments. We are opponents. Building friendship can wait until after the hidden camera content is over. So let's end the greetings here today. I have no reason to dislike being praised as Min Ki-won, but for now, we're adversaries. I've prepared sincerely to defeat you, Mr. Zhou Jinyol. You'd better be ready. Mr. Zhou Jinyol seemed to like my bold declaration of war, smiling to reveal his white teeth. I look forward to it, a clerk. After the competition, can we be friends? Of course. By the way, could I ask you to give some advice to a friend of mine from Korea National University of Arts later? However, he showed a displeased reaction to my question about meeting Siwoo. That I'll consider it if you beat me. Did I just feel something strangely cold, or was it my imagination? Meeting juniors is enjoyable, but I came here primarily to meet a new tube star named Eclert. I hope you understand that. Ahaha. Don't be shy. Well then, I look forward to our competition next week. Me too. After bowing my head, Mr. Joe Gignol had a brief conversation with the content staff and left first. The staff saw him off and then immediately ran to me, squealing with excitement. Really, I'm so excited to see who will win. Honestly, I think Eclert might have a chance of winning. Come on, don't flatter me too much. I'm serious. Ah, right, I haven't told you about that yet. One staff member brought a tablet and opened the list of judges, which showed a different lineup from the usual hidden camera participants. Professor Jang Jinsi from Shaw University, who always served as a judge, was missing. In his place was the photo of another professor. Professor Jang Jinsi suddenly had a schedule conflict. A schedule, yes. He suddenly had to go overseas for a duet concert with teacher Yoon Guanqiao. Teacher Yoon apologized for the sudden schedule change and arranged for a substitute. The moment I heard this, the back of my neck tingled. That man arranged for a substitute? It's so obvious. It was so blatantly clear he was going to favor Joe Gignol that it was absurd. Chapter 121, Eye for an Eye. Professor Jang Jinsa had an urgent schedule come up. A schedule, you say? Yes. He suddenly had to schedule an overseas duet concert with Yoon Guanqiao. Professor Yoon apologized for the sudden replacement and arranged it himself. The moment I heard this, the back of my neck tingled. That man arranged a replacement? How obvious can you get? It was so blatantly clear he was pushing for Joe Gignol that it was ridiculous. I see. I couldn't help but suspect Mr. Joe Gignol too. What if he was in league with Mr. Yoon? I'm pretty sure it was just innocent curiosity. Perhaps Mr. Yoon was exploiting that innocence. No matter how much he might be my wannabe, he's still only in his 20s. I should always consider the possibility that he fell completely for the smooth talk of Mr. Yoon, that experienced viper. If that's the case, am I now surrounded by enemies? A rival pianist determined to make me lose and a judge who's against me. There seems to be no escape route. Even if I could somehow match up against Mr. Joe Gignol, the judging is the problem. Someone planted by Mr. Yoon wouldn't hesitate to sway people's opinions. I can't believe he'd stoop so low. It's like having my nose cut off right before my eyes, but I'm not one to take things lying down. Unlike Jiang Siwoo from my past life, the current Min Ki-won is someone who needs to return what she receives in equal measure. So, how should I approach this? If they're using adult power, should I use adult power too? You're asking me so suddenly? Yes. Well, I don't see any reason why I can't help you. Professor Baekhyun looked visibly flustered. Understandably so. I had asked my mother to tell him that I want to study under Professor Baekhyun months ago, but without any updates on how that was progressing, I was now making a sudden request. Actually, I had forgotten about it. I haven't been in contact with my mom at all. Since Gang Hui apparently reports everything about me in detail, I unconsciously stopped reaching out to her. I feel guilty for seeming to avoid her, but my love life takes priority. If she ever called asking why don't you contact me, I was planning to say please wait just 3 years. It's absolutely not because I'm afraid of speaking German. Since Min Ki-won's mother, Margaret Hebler, has a Korean husband, she can speak Korean too. But tell me, did you ask to study under me? No matter how kind an adult the professor is, he couldn't just let it slide. I spoke with an embarrassed expression, licking my lips. About that, could I possibly postpone it a bit? You've already postponed it for about 2 months. Yes, that's true. But even more than 2 months. I thought he would refuse, but to my surprise, all right. I'll wait. How much longer do you need? Professor Baekhyun showed no intention of rushing me. He seemed satisfied just knowing that I had the will to study under him. He'd probably come find me and have a heart-to-heart talk even if I broke my promise and fled to Austria. But I'm the type of person who feels compelled to keep promises made to lifelong benefactors. If you make a promise, you should keep it. Of course, I'd be selective about which people deserve that commitment. 3 years. A brief silence fell between us. The professor was the first to break it. I'll wait. As long as it takes. By then I'll be quite old. Will that be okay? What does that matter? What does age have to do with playing the piano? Do teenagers play better and 30-year-olds play worse? Even when Jiang Siwu declared he would no longer compete in competitions, the professor didn't give up teaching. Though he didn't take on new students after me, Yun Jicheng and Song Xianghyuk, perhaps my giving up sparked his desire to nurture new disciples. Old? You'll only be 22 then, you youngster. Heh heh. Heh heh. Are you making fun of your professor? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to Anyway. Professor B. Kyungnan heaved a deep sigh. Yun Guanqiao. I'm not surprised that bastard hasn't changed his old habits. I could understand if his malice was directed at peers like us. But what kind of behavior is this toward a promising young person like you? Tisky then directed his aimless anger at the paper cup in his hand. The thick cafe cup crumpled instantly with a crunch. So our professor does get angry when provoked. I thought he was a boring person who always spoke flatly throughout his life. Like when he showed emotion after I broke free from my dark performances. And how he felt guilty for not fulfilling my dream. He just couldn't express it outwardly because he's an adult and a teacher. I've recently realized that he too is human and feels emotions similar to mine. When he wanted me to take on his son, he made all sorts of excuses. Now he's trying to harm someone who could be my student? Wasn't Yun Jicheng accepted as the professor's student simply because of his divine listening and analytical skills? Since he's planted 2 landmines, I'll help remove at least one. One means the judge. The filming preparations are already complete, right? If we mess with the performer side now, it would disrupt Jinul's schedule too. That would complicate things. Yes. So we should target the easier option. But what if the professor planted by Mr. Yoon insists on judging? Professor B. Kyeomin pulled at one corner of his mouth like a mischievous schoolboy. He's clearly planning something. Some way to block the substitute professor. Professor, I don't think you should resort to underhanded methods. I did contact you for help, but if you do something similar to what Mr. Yoon is doing, the professor burst into a short laugh of disbelief. Kiwon, do you really think I'm the kind of person who would do such things? Oh no. Absolutely not. Good. You spoke well. I absolutely won't do anything similar. The professor was getting straight to the point. Then, how will he overcome this crisis without using underhanded methods? What adult wisdom will the professor demonstrate? With eyes full of expectation, I looked at the professor as he spoke. That day, I planned to attend as another judge. I see. Wait, what? Isn't that the same as what Mr. Yoon is doing? The same? It's completely different. Specifically, the professor crossed his arms and confidently began explaining. I don't know who they've recruited yet, but I can guess. With your connections, I'm sure you can. That guy owes Yoon Guanqiao a lot. He'll probably do whatever Yoon asks. One-sided judging is a given, right? That's why I asked for your help. Surprisingly, the solution was simple. I will evaluate based on truly objective and absolute standards. If there's a difference in skill, I'll point it out bluntly. I'm not sure if that will really be effective. But this approach is only possible because it's the professor. After all, Zhou Jinul, who graduated from Hanyi University, is also one of Professor B. Kyeomin's former students. Who would stop a teacher from critically evaluating his former student? If the professor judges so strictly, could the other professor really one-sidedly praise Zhou Jinyul? Then it will become obvious if the other professor judging with me is favoring Jinyul. Favoring? Professor, you should maintain your dignity. That bastard Yun Guanqiao really gets on my nerves. You know, he never showed such dramatic emotional expressions in front of Siwu. Perhaps that too was consideration for me. Professor. Anyway, leave the judge situation to me. You need to at least match him in.